is weak and ineffective, which possibly that will happen because we had numerous presidents that were weak, ineffective, and afraid of Iran. We're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And if you think it's okay for people that are sick of mind, that are tough, smart, and sick, really sick.
Here's the difference. Trump is weak, stupid, and sick. He's not tough, smart, and sick like some of these people like Putin or whatever. He's a dumbass.
From
Rip YouTube. No. The YouTube stream is up and running again. I just have to reset something real quick.
Any which way you want to say, mentally, these are disturbed people. If you think I'm going to allow them, and powerful and rich, to have a nuclear weapon, you can tell your friends at the New York Times, not going to happen.
It means violating international law.
Quiet. You no longer have credibility at the New York Times. Because the New York Times said, oh, Trump won't win the election, and I won in a landslide. I won every swing state. New York Times said, oh,
what a
Trump.
pathetic man baby do you have to be to, after winning the election, you're still, New York Times, they had a poll that showed me down by 1 point.
Trump won't win the election.
Yeah, just shit your diaper while you're at it, bro.
No credibility. The credibility they have is it used to be all the news that's fit to print. The old gray lady, it was great, but they're running on past fumes, and you can't keep doing that. You have to be able to give the correct news. And people like you, who I know, are fake. You're fake. Go ahead, please.
And make sure you guys keep double tapping the screen, sharing the live. Pay links are in the link tree in my bio, as well as my YouTube, my Discord, and all my other platforms like Instagram. If you want me to go live more often, then the best way to do that is to boost these lives while I'm doing them so that I actually have some kind of momentum to keep going. But yeah.
Your messaging on the war has moved from the war is coming to an end to war going to be bombing Iran to the Stone Ages. Right. And we've heard a range of those kind of messages. So which is it? Are you winding this down or are you escalating?
I can't tell you. I don't know. I can't tell you. Depends what they do. This is a critical period.
Didn't he just say I have a plan? And now he actually does it. That was a quick moment of honesty. Are you going to like destroy them or are you just going to run away? I don't know. But also 5 minutes earlier, I'm not going to tell you guys my plan, but I definitely have a plan.
I tell you, I don't know. I can't tell you. Depends what they do. This is a critical
period. You think
period.
Charlie Kirk would still support Trump if he were alive or audience captured? I don't know. Maybe he would.
They have a period of, well, till tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I gave them an extension. They asked for an extension of 7 days, right? I said, Steve, give them 10 days. 10 days is up actually today, so I gave them 11, I guess, indirectly. I thought it was inappropriate the day after Easter. I want to be a nice person. They have till tomorrow.
Try to get in touch and work with
we'll see what
Mehdi Hasan and Zadeh. I would love to.
I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this. But we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah. Stone Ages. CNN fake news.
Are you willing to make a deal that does not include reopening the Strait of Hormuz, or is that now a top priority?
I would say it's a very big priority because see, that's one thing that's a little different than other things. We can bomb the hell out of them. We can knock them out for a loop. But to close the strait, all you need is one terrorist that somehow has a truck loaded with, because you can carry them in trucks, large trucks.
It's like he's just discovering what asymmetric warfare is. And this is clearly something the Department of Defense would have drafted up like, hey, if we attack Iran, here's the first 5 things they're definitely going to do, and here's how difficult it's going to be to neutralize those things. This is why you don't pick fucking war with Iran. We destroyed their Navy and their Air Force. Okay, that was never really like tough. That was never really a big achievement, because Iran's main way of engaging in this war, the same thing they did against Iraq, is like they will play dirty and like play these like cheap tricks to, like, you can't deal with. If they're sending $20,000 drones and you're spending like $1 million to shoot each of them down, they're bleeding you dry. Like they're spending very little money and engaging very little actual official military equipment to create massive disaster in terms of our energy trade. And he's like, oh, who would have known? All you need is one person to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, that's kind of the fucking point. That's why this was dumb.
Drop them in the water. And now you tell people that own ships that cost $1 billion to don't worry about the mine. You can do that even just by saying we put mines in the water. So it's not like the rest. We can knock out their military. We already have. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their Air Force completely. We've knocked out 150.
Oh, congrats. Everyone was really on the edge of their seat about how Iran's Navy and Air Force was going to do against the United States. I'm sure that's what everyone thought was going to happen, is that their Air Force was going to do so good.
Ships. In 3 days, we've knocked out even their mine droppers. They don't have any mine droppers anymore, but they put them on other boats.
As he just said, all they really need to stay in this fight is some dude with a fucking bazooka and like a drone off of Temu. You have enough of those dudes, a couple dozen here, 3 or 4 here, and like you're cooked.
And they could drop them. I'm not even sure they have any mines there, by the way. I'm not sure. I'm personally, they say there might be 8. I don't know. I think there might be none. Because they're very good bullshit artists. That's why for 47 years they've been bullshitting other presidents, and they haven't done the job. And people are living in hell. You live in that country, they're living in hell. No, I think that 47 years of this stuff is long enough. They're at the weakest point they've ever been. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force.
That's also not good. You understand, a country like Iran, when you back them into a corner, this is not the country that's going to go quietly into the night. People, and I need to read more about this too, but like people should read up on the Iran-Iraq war. Like Iraq had them outnumbered and or like at least outdone in terms of like military sophistication. And then what does Iran do? They just start fucking sending in swarms of people through the minefields. And like maybe 70% of them die, but just by the sheer volume and force and just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, they end up persevering.
They have no anti-aircraft weaponry. They have no radar. They have no communication.
And it's like, this is all obvious basic shit you can learn from a PBS documentary on YouTube that he has no clue about. We had no clue Iran was going to do this.
Negotiation is that they
can't. Random people on fucking Reddit knew they were going to do this. Like, what? Where are you getting your information from?
And communicate. I said to Steve, what are they saying? Sir, they can't communicate. They have no method of communication. So we're communicating like they used to communicate 2,000 years ago with children.
What we did is created a power vacuum by decentralizing the chain of command. Is that supposed to be a good thing where you have 10 different factions of the IRGC that are like not able to coordinate with each other? Then who the fuck are you negotiating with? One of them? Or are you negotiating with the actual central command? Is there even a single sovereign entity with monopoly on force right now in Iran, or is there like a bunch of them?
Bring in a note back and forth. They have no communication. But all I want to see is I want to have a safe world. And you're not going to have a safe world. Israel will be gone. The Middle East will be gone.
I said it earlier, I'll say it again. Every single blue governor and blue mayor in the United States needs to give a joint press conference saying we are declaring a state of emergency in our respective cities and states because the president of the United States is a deranged authoritarian terrorist who is openly telling us he wants to steal the election. We're declaring a state of emergency. This is not normal,
I have to tell you,
bro.
I'm very disappointed in NATO. Very.
And
I
it's
think that
the way it's being normalized is like
a mark on
it's
NATO
getting
that
to
will
a,
never disappear. Never disappear in my mind. You know, they're coming to see me on Wednesday.
If you watch me, you know that
"Oh."
I'm very calm and collected, and I really try to stay like grounded. But this is it's getting really fucking insane, bro. It's like
we'll do this, we'll do that. Now they all of a sudden want to send things, you know. But they said it loud and clear at the beginning when I spoke to UK of all. I would have said they would have been the first because they're the oldest. And I say, yeah, I'd love to have a little help. He said, no, sir, we'd rather wait till you win. I said, I don't need help after we win.
You are crashing out a little bit, and here's the thing. My crash out is an underreaction. No amount of crashing out. I could break my monitor like fucking iShow speed and set my house on. No amount of crash out is sufficient for this.
Broken aircraft carriers barely work. I said, I guess we can use them. Who the hell knows? I called the general. He didn't even want them. He said, we don't really need them. We got We got the.
This is like this is such a great analogy I saw on Twitter earlier. We are in the back seat of a car where the driver is a drunk driver and he just merged onto the freeway and he's flooring the accelerator. And the guy in the passenger seat thinks that his job is just to convince everyone that he's a bad driver. No, the job is to get him out of the fucking driver's seat, peacefully and patriotically.
Yes, Abraham Lincoln, sir. We don't need him. Do you know, we have, in terms of technology, we had one day 101 missiles going at 2,700 miles an hour aimed at the Abraham Lincoln. 101 missiles. Out of 101 missiles, 101 missiles were shot down. Unbelievable technology. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know if that would have been possible, but 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible. 101 missiles heading to a ship that's not that far off the coast. And out of the 101 missiles, we shot down all 101. We have weaponry. The Patriots are unbelievable. We have weaponry that's unbelievable, yeah. Go ahead, please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said earlier today during the egg roll that you would like to take Iran's oil, but Americans want U.S. forces home.
Correct.
What's that trade-off?
If I had my choice, yeah, because I'm a businessman first. With Venezuela, as you know, the war was over in about 45 minutes. And we have great people running Venezuela, very good people. I mean, the relationship is good. And we are a partner with Venezuela. And we've taken hundreds of millions of barrels, hundreds of millions. Over 100 million barrels already is in Houston, refined and out. And paid for that war many, many times over.
You know, none of that really matters if the global price of oil is up, right? Like he said he said in his fucking primetime address, the Strait of Hormuz does not matter to us. We don't get any energy from the Strait of Hormuz. That's not the fucking point. These people are so fucking stupid. It's actually unreal, bro. You could go to a random Twitter thread and find someone who's like a million times more competent than these people. The most obvious glaring facts of reality are just, they somehow miss them.
Many times. You know, the old days.
It doesn't matter if you get oil from the Strait of Hormuz. It affects the global oil supply, which affects the price of oil everywhere, including the United States.
Okay, you know that. To the winner belong the spoils. Go the spoils. And I've said, why don't we use it? To the victor, go the spoils. And we don't have that. We haven't had that in this country probably in 100 years, because even the Second World War, you look at the Second World War.
I need to stay woke.
We didn't have it with the
There are
Second World War.
certain things I want to call this man, but
we rebuilt Germany. How about Germany telling us that, well, it's not their war. We had nothing to do with it. They wanted me to go and tell them everything I was doing. We didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have told them, they would have leaked it, and we wouldn't have been nearly as successful, possibly, right? But to the victor belong the spoils. So we haven't heard that in, I think, maybe hundreds of years. Now with Venezuela, and just so you understand, the people of Venezuela, they say if I ran for president of Venezuela, I'm polling higher than anybody has ever polled in Venezuela. So after I'm finished with this, I can go to Venezuela. I will quickly learn Spanish. It won't take too long. I'm good at language. And I will go to Venezuela. I'm going to run for president. But we're very happy with the president-elect that we have right now, the people that are running it. If you remember Bush with Iraq, they fired the generals, they fired the police, they fired the people that worked in there, equivalent of the White House. They fired everybody. And you know what they had? They had a mess. And you know what happened? ISIS formed. Those generals and those soldiers got together. The police got together. They all got together. They formed ISIS. Not going to happen with us.
Why?
So,
why not?
Venezuela's been an incredible...
Oh, in Venezuela. What about in Iran? You just said that you destroyed their chain of command, right?
Incredible situation.
Isn't that
we
like
went in. We were very successful. Military power like nobody's ever seen. The general...
Am I losing my mind? Did he not just give the rationale against regime change?
And I will go to Venezuela. I'm going to run for president. But we're very happy with the president-elect that we have right now, the people that are running it. If you remember Bush with Iraq, they fired the generals, they fired the police, they fired the people that worked in there, equivalent of the White House. They fired everybody. And you know what they had? They had a mess. And you know what happened? ISIS formed.
Didn't you just effectively fire a lot of the Iranian leadership by killing them and destroying their chain of command?
Generals and those soldiers got together, the police got together, they all got together, they formed ISIS. Not going to happen with us. So Venezuela's been an incredible situation. We went in, we were very successful, military power like nobody's ever seen. The general, Venezuelan general said, I was on that site. I said, I've never seen ferocity like that. I've been doing this for 40 years. He said, I've never seen it. They hit us from 17 different, they were all set. They saw that big, beautiful aircraft carrier, the Ford in that case, and planes were pouring off it at 1 o'clock in the morning. So typically when you see that late at night, you know, you could be in trouble, right? And we were all ready. They had their equipment. It was Russian. And they had Chinese equipment. It was all set. They were going to give us a fight. He said, and then they came, and they came at speeds like we've never seen. And they came at 17 different angles. The general and his people, that was a lot of angles. They hit him from every angle. He said,
how much time is he going to waste talking about how fast the missiles were and how big the... we get it, bro. Okay, American military has a lot of weapons. Okay, cool. Congrats.
He knew it was over in 3 minutes. We were waiting for him. Their equipment didn't work, and there's a reason it didn't work. Someday we'll explain that to people. They pressed the button. Nothing happened. They pressed it again and again. Nothing happened. And he said, we knew this whole thing was over in 3 minutes. We've never seen any... He used the word ferocity. The ferocity of these planes from... people, that was a lot of angles. They hit him from every angle. He said, we knew it.
He spends so much time not just talking about some story that someone else told him, but like really letting you know exactly what words that he said. Ferocity, folks. Ferocity is what he said. It's a word he used, folks, because the missiles, they were so fast and the explosions were so big, and he told me it was ferocious. We get it. We get it. Move on. Oh my God.
It was over in 3 minutes.
Oh my God.
We were waiting for him. Their equipment didn't work.
I would rather watch paint
Someday
dry.
We'll explain that to people. They pressed the button. Nothing happened. They pressed it again and again. Nothing happened. And he said, we knew this whole thing was over in 3 minutes. We've never seen any... He used the word ferocity. The ferocity of these planes from 17 different angles. And it was over. They went inside. And remember, that was on a military base with thousands of soldiers.
Okay.
And those soldiers looked and they said, get the hell out of here. Thousands. We didn't have thousands. We had like 200 people.
What is the point of any of this? What are you saying?
Military. And I'll tell you what, somehow this rescue
Can we ask him talk about the war crimes he's planning, maybe? The acts of terrorism he's planning?
More so than normally. You're talking about 2 people. But this rescue captured the world's attention. But we did it in Venezuela. That was amazing. And now we have a very bad man in prison and going to trial. I mean, he released, aside from the drugs, which he was terrible, Maduro released hundreds of thousands of people from jails into our country. Drug dealers, murderers, the worst people in the world were released into our country because we had a stupid president who probably didn't know. And we had a border czar who never went to the border and never once called our great border patrol agents, right? Not once, Kamala. She never called the border patrol. She never said, how we doing? I used to call the border patrol guys every day. You can ask them, Paul, ask any one of them.
I will pay
all the time. How we doing? How we doing?
If you're a journalist and you're hearing this, I will pay you. Just call him a dumbass.
We don't have caravans anymore.
Tell him, bro.
So maybe what?
Biden did this. Biden knew the method. Quit yapping. Will you shut up, man? It's really that easy. It's really that easy. It applies in 99% of situations when this guy is opening his mouth. Can you just shut up? Can you just stop yapping, bro? And actually focus on the task at hand?
1 or 2 more and we'll be done.
Mr. President, are you allowed to, or are you willing to end this conflict with Iran charging tolls for passage through the strait?
Us charging tolls?
Iran.
What about us charging tolls?
Is that something you're considering?
I'd rather do that.
Bro. I can't do this. I can't. Are you going to allow Iran to permanently raise the price of oil by just charging tolls to everyone who passes through the strait? Well, what if I raise the price of oil by charging tolls? What if I solve the crisis to then recreate it myself? You understand? He's basically saying, what if we take control away from Iran and then we close the strait? What if we shut down the strait and start charging tolls? I hate this. I just...
Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won. Okay. They are militarily defeated.
Then why can't you leave? I missed what the reporter said. Didn't the reporter ask him, would it be an acceptable resolution if Iran is charging tolls?
Are you allowed to, or are you willing to end this conflict with Iran charging tolls for passage through the strait?
Yeah, that's what they said.
Us charging tolls?
Iran.
What about us charging tolls?
Is that something you're considering?
I'd rather do that than let them have them, right? Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won.
This guy is like a fucking barbarian. These people have caveman brain. They literally have caveman brain. We won, so we get to take everything and kill everyone.
They are militarily defeated. The only thing they have is a psychology of, oh, we're going to drop a couple of mines in the water, all right? No, we have a concept where we'll charge tolls, okay? I thought you meant us. Your question would have been more accurate if you said us. Go ahead.
So just to clarify, in order for Iran to successfully meet your deadline tomorrow, do they have to make a deal?
Does anyone... Am I crazy for... Like, my brain just stopped functioning when he said that. He's so adamant about the Strait of Hormuz has to be opened, so that we can close it. Okay.
Deal.
But also remember, it's going to open naturally anyways, and Europe has to open it. But we don't need Europe.
Straight or both.
We have to have a deal that's acceptable to me. And part of that deal is going to be we want free traffic of oil and everything else.
Mr. President, thank you very much. You've said glory be to God in this conflict. Do you believe that God supports the United States' actions in this
I do,
war?
because
And
God is
besides
good.
direction?
Because God is good, and God wants to see people taken care of. God doesn't like what's
Sorry,
happening.
bro.
I don't like
If I told you about a man who was invoking God to justify attacks on civilian infrastructure, you would assume I'm talking about like someone in Al-Qaeda or ISIS. This is no different. This is terrorism.
what's happening. Everyone says, I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy it. These two guys don't enjoy it. You know, people say, oh boy, they're so tough. I don't like seeing people killed. I've ended 8 wars.
I don't like seeing people killed, he says. He doesn't like it. He doesn't take glee in it, guys. It's a tough thing for him to do. He doesn't revel in it. He doesn't like actually having to do any of this. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards. You'll be living in hell. Does this sound like a man who's just like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. I really wish I didn't have to do this. This is how you talk, yeah.
Nobody's ever done
sick,
it.
demented,
The
twisted
person who won the Nobel
people,
Prize
bro.
came to me and said, you deserve the Nobel Prize. She announced that. When they announced, they said, goes to Maria. She's a great person, really a good
He's
person.
still talking
She said,
about the Nobel. This man is so fucking stupid. He's so stupid. There are not words that can properly capture how stupid. I mean, maybe there are, but they're not words I want to use. But like,
no.
he's not just dumb for a politician. He's dumb for a normal person. Like the average person, I feel like would be able to think these things through better.
This is ridiculous. They gave me the Nobel Prize. President Trump ended 8
He's
wars.
so deranged. He's actually so like this is. Why are we normalizing this? He uses the R slur, but if he's going to use it, he should use it for himself.
Over every one of them, including India and Pakistan, where the Prime Minister of Pakistan said President Trump saved from 30 to 50 million lives. That makes me much happier than what we're doing right now. That makes me much happier. We have one more to end, by the way.
President, you called yesterday in your Truth Social, you called the Iranians crazy bastards.
True.
What is your response to critics who say that?
I don't care about critics.
What is your response to critics who say that it is your mental health that should perhaps be examined as this war
Well,
continues?
I haven't heard that. But if that's the case, you're going to have more people like me.
What?
Crazy bastards.
True.
What is your response to critics who say that?
I don't care about critics.
What is your response to critics who say that it is your mental health that should perhaps be examined as this war
Well, I
continues?
haven't heard.
Thank you for asking it. Even that question was asked honestly way too politely. But thank you for asking. You're saying that they're crazy. Everyone thinks that you're fucking... The way to ask this isn't, what do you say of critics? As if it's debatable that Trump's fucking crazy. It's, sir, how can you call them crazy bastards when you're the unhinged one? Like, you've given us no reason to have any trust in your mental faculties.
That. But if that's the case, you're going to have more people like me, because our country was being ripped off on trade, on everything for many years.
What an answer. If I'm crazy, we just need more crazy fucking people. Okay.
Until I came along. So if that's the case, you're going to have more people. Josh, you go. Josh, you
You
go.
said that very little is off limits in Iran as far as the targeting,
Yeah.
including power plants, bridges, you mentioned those.
Very little is off limits.
Are there certain kinds of civilian targets, though? I'm thinking schools
I don't want
or
to tell you
hospitals
that.
you
I don't want to
would
tell you
say
that.
is off-
He won't rule out intentional strikes on schools. I can't just make a comment on that and just keep it pushing like this is normal. This is crazy. Is there a single world leader of any major power, any major world power, who has spoken like this in the post-World War II era?
I haven't heard that. But if that's the case, you're going to have more people like me.
I thought she was going to ask him about desalination plants, because he's threatened desalination plants, which in and of itself, threatening the fresh water supply of the Iranian people is crazy. But this is...
Our country was being ripped off on trade, on everything for many years until I came along. So if that's the case, you're going to have more people. Josh, you go. Josh, you
You
go.
said that very little is off limits in Iran as far as the targeting,
Yeah.
including power plants, bridges, you mentioned those.
Very little is off limits.
Are there certain kinds of civilian targets, though? I'm thinking schools
I don't want
or
to tell you
hospitals
that.
you
I don't
would
want to
say
tell you
is
that.
Schools or hospitals? I don't want to tell you that. Everyone understands the implication there, right? Because if it wasn't on the table, you could just say no. Why would you even leave that option, that possibility open? Why would you say this?
This will
Well,
continue.
I haven't heard that. But if that's the case, you're going to have more people like me because our country was being ripped off on trade, on everything for many years until I came along. So if that's the case, you're going to have more people. Dasha, go ahead. Dasha, go.
You said that very little is off limits in Iran
Bro.
as far as the targeting,
Yeah.
including power plants, bridges. You've mentioned those.
Where are the
Very
Trump
little
supporters?
difference.
Are there certain
Someone
kinds of-
defend this. Where are the Trump supporters? Where are they? Did they defend this?
civilian targets though?
Man, I need some
I don't wanna
debates,
tell you
bro.
that.
I need some debates. Otherwise,
I don't
I'm
wanna
just
tell you
gonna
that.
watch me get
We
fucking
have-
triggered and
we
crash
have
out for the
a
next 2
plan
hours.
because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated
I don't know enough about Orban to say anything
by
about
12
that.
o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning.
I can't let that, like, I don't know how to emphasize that properly without just going in circles. Are you considering strikes on schools and hospitals? I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to rule anything out. Schools and hospitals. Not even collateral damage, deliberately targeting schools and hospitals.
Exploding and never to be used
What
again.
is
I mean,
the- remove him from
demolition
office
by 12
yesterday.
o'clock, and it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen. We may even get involved with helping them rebuild their nation. And you know what? If that's the case, the last thing we want to do is start with power plants, which are among the most expensive things, and bridges. You saw the bridge. The bridge went. We were very close to a deal. And then I got a call from Mr. Witkoff, Mr. Kushner, and JD saying, I think they're breaking the deal. I said, tell them.
Find a novel legal theory to remove him from office. Invoke some amendment of the Constitution. Try to take... Bro, if there is some kind of legal loophole to do a soft secession from the Union... This is so unhinged and crazy. I am so sick and tired of everyone acting like this is just business as usual. We're going to have a CNN debate panel on this later. I wonder what the strategy is. He just said he won't rule out bombing schools and hospitals. He's crazy. He is insane. And you guys you sane wash his insanity.
Okay, don't worry about it. But tell them to look out their window and watch. And within 45 minutes, I gave the order to knock out the biggest bridge. I gave the order to knock out the biggest bridge in, I believe, the Middle East, but the biggest bridge in Iran. And within 10 minutes after I gave that order, that bridge was over. So do I want to do that? No. Do I want to destroy their infrastructure? No. It will take them 100 years to rebuild. Right now, if we left today, it would take them 20 years to rebuild their country, and it would never be as good as it was. And the only way they're going to be able to rebuild their country is to utilize the genius of the United States of America.
You voice your displeasure.
I would not support you know what. I'm not being sarcastic when I say that I would never call lawless action and violence accomplishes nothing except creating martyrs for them and giving them a pretext to crack down more on civil liberties. So I'm saying very clearly, engaging in random acts of vigilante violence is fucking stupid. It accomplishes nothing. But with that being said, bro, going on Stephen Colbert and like preaching to the choir about, we all know, Trump does not put America first. He puts America last. And that's why I, as a Democrat, we want to bring back normal. These guys are a little weird. We want to bring back normal. We're the party of Yo, what are you doing? The house is on fire.
In the past, is there a danger to the U.S.?
This is why career politicians piss me off.
Of the leader of the alliance, and then
They're performing for something. They think this is like a game.
other powers within the alliance, then getting the decision making when it comes to wars and nuclear weapons.
No, it's not a danger. NATO's, look, we went to NATO.
Fight back. These people are beating the fuck out of you, and you're just there like, oh, sir, can I ask a question, sir?
I didn't ask it very strongly. I just said, hey, if you want to help, great. No, we will not help. I said, that's all right. You don't want to help? Because I've always said NATO's a paper tiger. See, NATO is a paper tiger. Putin's not afraid of NATO. Putin's afraid of us, very afraid of us. And he's explained it to me a lot of times. I got to know him very well. I know him very well. NATO's a paper...
A general strike? Dude, I mean, I don't think you can rely on something that requires so many... The people that have power need to be using that power in a much more aggressive manner, in a much more offensive manner, rather than just defense. Governors have a lot of power. Governors have a lot of power. Especially if they're working in conjunction with mayors. Governors can declare states of emergency. They can invoke emergency powers. States have a lot of rights that the federal government does not have. Exhaust every single one. Come up with novel legal theories. Find super fringe left-wing lawyers who can cobble together a really weird interpretation of some old law from fucking 1700 and then take it to a blue district court judge. Use your brain. This is what they do. This is what they come up with some random novel league. Oh, I think the president is immune from all crimes. If you told someone that in 2015, they'd think you're fucking crazy. Well, guess what? Now it's Supreme Court precedent. Learn from that. Come up with a crazy novel legal theory as to why you don't have to cooperate at all with the federal government, as to why you can arrest federal agents, which you don't even need a novel legal theory for that. Of course you can. Every single governor right now should be coming out and saying, I'm declaring a state of emergency until the election is over. We are going to have National Guard and state and local police protecting every single polling place. And if the FBI shows up, if DHS shows up, they are getting arrested. They're going to jail. We will arrest them.
Obviously, because they haven't helped at all. Just the opposite. They've actually gone out of their way not to help. They didn't even want to give us landing strips. Think of it. And it's not just NATO. You know who else didn't help us? South Korea didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Australia didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Japan. We've got 50,000 soldiers in Japan to protect them from North Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea.
Till a gunfight breaks out. Here's the thing, though. I am so sick of them hanging violence over the head of everyone. Like, this is the big fear governors have, is like, oh, if we arrest these federal agents, what if a shootout happens? So you're going to let them come in and seize the ballots then? Because, newsflash, there is no more powerful force on the face of the earth than the federal government of the United States. So if fear of hard power is going to keep you neutered to such an extent that you can't even enforce the law on the books, you need to, what is the point of politics then? This man is holding the country hostage, and everyone's letting him do it.
To protect us from Kim Jong-un, who I get along with very well, as you know. Do you notice he said very nice things about me? He used to call Joe Biden a mentally retarded person, okay? So don't tell me about your stuff. Joe Biden, he said he's a mentally retarded person. He was so
I don't use this word because it offends people. And it's mean. Why would I go out of my way to say a word that is hurting people's feelings? Like, I think it's pretty clear. The one person I would give someone a pass on using this word for is Trump, because this is the language he speaks. It's the language he understands. This is why I call Trump a fat fuck and an ugly person. I would never talk about someone else like that, but these are the terms in which he thinks, in which he speaks about other people, and he belittles them and demeans them and attacks them. So for him to so loosely throw around the R slur like this is
nasty to Joe Biden.
Use it against Tim Walz, against Joe Biden, buddy. It's you who this applies to, if anyone.
To me, he likes Trump. And do you notice how nice things are with North Korea? It's very nice. But we have 45,000 people, soldiers, in harm's way, and right next to Kim Jong-un with a lot of nuclear weapons. 45, which should have never happened.
The gall, the audacity to talk about how stupid other people are.
But if a certain president did his job, Kim Jong-un would not have nuclear weapons right now. But they were all afraid to do their job properly. But just to conclude and just to finish, Japan didn't help us, Australia didn't help us, South Korea didn't help us, and then you get to NATO, NATO didn't help us. There were some countries that did. Now, countries that have been good, now you could also say they're got to be a little bit more involved because they're in the territory, but Saudi Arabia has been excellent, Qatar has been excellent, UAE has been excellent, Bahrain, Kuwait. I mean,
yeah, they've been excellent with lining your pockets, and Jared Kushner and the Witkoffs, right, by giving a bunch of money to World Liberty Financial and approving a bunch of your fucking golf courses and hotels. Of course you guys are close allies.
The only planes, really, that we lost it with, friendly fire, they call it. I call it unfriendly fire. They unfortunately didn't know how to use our great Patriots. The pilot said, what kind of a missile's coming at us? Patriot. Boom, they got out. Because they know a Patriot never misses. So they had beautiful Patriots. There were planes heading in their direction. Unfortunately, they decided to shoot those planes. They were our planes. So, NATO is a paper tiger. Now, he's coming to see me on Wednesday, as you know. He's a wonderful guy. Secretary General is great. And Mark Rutte, he's a great person, but he's got, and you know, it all began with, if you want to know the truth, Greenland. We want Greenland. They don't want to give it to us, and I said, bye-bye. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. NATO is a paper tiger. Now, he's coming to see me on Wednesday, as you know. He's a wonderful guy. Secretary General was great. And Mark Rutte, he's a great person, but he's got, and you know, it all began with, if you want to know the truth, Greenland. We want Greenland. They don't want to give it to us, and I said, bye-bye. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Rising gas prices for Americans who are concerned.
This is not politics as usual. This man is not the legitimate president of the United States. When you abdicate your oath to the Constitution, when you don't just not follow the Constitution, but you actively work to undermine and destroy the Constitution, when you have said multiple times, I'm above the law, we should terminate the Constitution, I want to kill my political opponents, I want to arrest my political opponents, I want to bomb desalination plants and power plants, and I won't rule out bombing schools and hospitals. What are we doing? What are Democrats doing right now? Going on book tours? Let me tell you, when I grew up, I'm not really what you guys think I am. I lived a humble life coming up, and I learned the value of hard work. Shut the fuck up, bro. I don't know if these people don't take it seriously or what, but like, especially the governors, bro, lock in. What are you doing? I might just end the live. If there's no debates, I don't know how much anyone gains from me just sitting here and then crashing out for the next 2 hours with 50 people watching because the algorithm fucked me today. So, if there's any last minute questions, comments, concerns, co-host with Dean. I've never done a live with Dean before. I want to self-invite onto Dean's thing. Hold on. I can bring up the debate view for a bit and see if anyone requests, but I doubt it. I think someone earlier wanted to ask a question, a friendly. I don't know if they're still around, but if anyone does want to ask a quick question, you can let me know. Otherwise, I'm probably going to hop off for the day. I wanted to watch that press conference because this Iran thing is like certain moments have happened during this administration, which for me have felt like a big, like this is an inflection point, and people just treat it like it's any other news story. One of them was Abrego Garcia and like Munoz Pinto, people that were sent to CCOT. One of them was Alex Preddy, and now one of them is these terror threats against Iran. Like these three moments especially have been like, what are we doing here? Was the Charlie Kirk Jubilee video going to be a surrounded? Yeah, it was going to be a surrounded. Progressive desensitization, and it's also clearly a lot of the people in power are not, either they don't care about the stakes or they don't understand the stakes, or they have no understanding of how to use their power. Like, look how ruthlessly Trump uses his power. He will call anything a state of emergency. He'll find a way to call it a state of emergency. He will reappropriate congressional funds. He will openly threaten his political opponents with death. And what are Democrats doing right now? What are they doing? Like, have any blue governors declared a state of emergency because of Trump? I don't think anyone has. Whitmer declared an emergency in April 2026 to address high fuel prices. It's not what I mean. Although not always labeled a state of emergency, Democratic governors from 22 states and D.C. have taken collective legal action against the administration's illegal federal funding freezes. Josh Shapiro successfully sued to restore $2.1 billion in frozen federal funds. Governor Gavin Newsom called a special legislative session to Trump-proof the state. But these are all defensive measures. These are all defensive, which is fine. Go on the offense. Go on the offense. Do stuff to the federal government now. This is not even the bare minimum. You have to fight back. You can't just defend. Governors such as Jared Polis and Wes Moore have criticized the administration. No. Is this a crazy ask? Every single Democratic governor and mayor in the United States should declare a state of emergency because Donald Trump is president. And that would still be a way more warranted declaration than any time Trump has done it. And don't just bring in litigation to say, oh, Trump can't take our money. Take money from them. Like, take power from them. Dude, like, I know this is hard to hear, but Dems have always been like this. Get a better party. They don't give a fuck. Dems have always been like, I mean, where's Trump been before? This is a unique moment, right? And the issue is the Democratic politicians, not the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the base. The Democratic Party is people that actually vote for Democrats. You think any governors or legislators that are not doing anything secretly Republican, but they just want to be... I think they're scared. I think people are too risk averse. They're too risk averse. They hold themselves to a standard that does not exist anymore. We all just watched the President of the United States say that he won't rule out strikes on hospitals and schools. And they're worried about, oh, I wonder how this looks. But I will say, don't abandon, vote for Democrats. Vote in primaries to get good Democrats elected. If anyone's logic here is like, typical Democrats, they're not going to do anything. Okay, what would you suggest we do? What's the plan? What's the plan then? Because I would like to criticize the Democrats while being a Democrat to have a seat at the table and push them in the right direction. Everyone who's like abandoned the Democratic Party, they're not going to, okay, where are we going then? What are we going to do? What's the plan? What would you like to suggest? Hegseth is eliminating generals that will stop his war crimes. And look throughout history. What happens when authoritarian regimes start purging senior military officials? What is that indicative of? They're planning a massive illegal power grab. It's easy to remove those people now rather than December or November when they're like, hey, we're not going to follow these illegal orders to go into polling places. This is all because of Israel. I mean, Israel is a factor. People that act like Israel is like the explanation for everything to ever happen on the world ever is like silly. But obviously Israel played a massive role in dragging us into this conflict. But I even hesitate to say that because I don't want to take agency away from Trump. Trump is not just like a gust of wind who has no agency. He chose to let Israel manipulate him. He was too stupid to see better, right? So I'm not going to strip him of agency there. But yeah, Israel's a massive problem. But some people on the right have this cope of like, oh, it's all Israel. It's not Trump. It's just Trump is too weak to stand up to them. No. Trump is also a problem. Stop just acting like it's all on Israel when Trump bears a lot of responsibility. When we go low, we go high. It's not about going low and high. It's just if someone, and this is metaphorical, I want to clarify, everything I'm about to say is peaceful and patriotic, and it's law and order, and I would never call for anything illegal or violent, okay? When someone is repeatedly punching you in the face, and your nose has started bleeding, and your bones are starting to break, and all you can say is, can we talk about this? Can we have a conversation? And you maybe block your head a little bit. You need to fight back. You need to hit them back. Way harder than they're hitting you. People have been trying to change the party from within for decades. They roll over for fash. Okay, what is your solution then, dude? Because I am of the opinion that we should criticize the Democratic Party while being within it to change it for the better. And people who are like anti-electoralism, I just haven't heard anything from them on like, okay, what do we do then? Because I'm giving a plan of action of what elected officials can do and what people can do in terms of voting in Democratic primaries to get better Democrats in office. And I don't have an opinion on the Republican California governor. I don't know who that is. Man.
I'm Harry Enton, and we are running all the numbers on why war isn't helping Trump, and you won't see this on air. Why is there not a rally around the flag event for Donald Trump? In fact, you look at these numbers, they're absolutely bonkers. There's been the opposite of a rally around the flag event. Look at this. Net approval change due to actions in Iran. If you look a month in, back during the Iranian hostage crisis, look at this. Jimmy Carter saw his net approval rating jump up by 32 points. It was a massive, massive rally around the flag event. But look at this. Trump's net approval rating, it's actually down. It's actually down 1, 2, 3, 4 points. 4 points since the beginning of the war in Iran. And indeed, you can look at wars during the last 35 years in the Middle East, and you see the same story. That is usually you see rally around the flag events. You're not seeing that here. Look at this. 1 month change in net approval ratings during the Iran war, the Iraq war, and the Gulf War. Both of these, of course, being fought with Iraq. And look at this. Again, you see Trump here, 4 points under war. Look at this with George W. Bush, 14 points above. That is his net approval rating jump by 14 points. And look at George H.W. Bush. My goodness gracious, a jump of 31 points in just a month's time from the start of the Gulf War to a month in. So we see that Donald Trump is very, very much the outlier here. Now, I was racking my brain, and this is something that is very difficult for me to do because there's a lot going on up there, some of which is absolutely bonkers. I just think about all those old 90s sitcoms. And I did, in my mind...
Do you think the United States will collapse? It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. This is like watching a car accident happen in slow motion when there's plenty of time to hit the brakes and just there's a drunk fucking driver in the seat.
Recently of an event, a foreign policy event in Asia in which we see numbers that are similar in terms of this shift for Donald Trump. Look at this. Look at the shift that we see here. Okay. Net approval rating change 1 month after the Iran war began. Look at this. Late February now, we see Trump down by 4 points. Look at this. Look at the shift that we saw for Joe Biden upon the Afghanistan exit, right? When we took our troops out of Afghanistan. Look at that. Joe Biden saw a drop in his net approval rating of 6 points. Very similar to what we see with Donald Trump right now in terms of his net approval rating when it comes to a month into the Iran war. And of course, Joe Biden's presidency, at least politically speaking, was basically over the day after we had that Afghanistan exit. He never recovered. His net approval rating never, ever recovered from the drop that he saw after the Afghanistan exit.
I can't make a prediction because Trump is so much worse than I ever expected him to be. I would never have even... I still can't get over that he said he's not going to rule out bombing schools and hospitals. This man is unhinged and crazy. You can't even rule out a nuclear weapon.
We'll see if that's the case with Donald John Trump. But what I can say is why? What is going on?
Especially because he acts more and more deranged the more support he loses. It's like a vicious cycle where the more people jump ship, the more crazy shit he's going to do.
Why is Trump not seeing the rise in his net approval ratings that we often see when it comes to foreign policy activities, that is, that rally around the flag event when we see the starts of wars? Well, I think this might give you a pretty good indication why. Okay, first off, this war, it's not popular, and it's becoming less popular. Look at this. Net approval rating U.S. military action in Iran. At the start of the war, if you took a look at the average polls, look at that.
Bro, if we're not going to get any debates, I'm ending the live because I'm too triggered for this right now to just do like a chill reaction. I'd rather put this energy into like a video or a script or something. J-Man, hop in the requests or you're a bot. Join Dean. I'll hop on and request, but like I don't want to be... I don't like self-inviting onto people's lives. I know he's not super... Like he doesn't have a bunch of people on there except like Santana and Parker, so... I'm not a big fan of going and spamming like, hey, let me up, let me up, let me up. I hate doing that shit. J-Man, come on, where are you, bro? Super quiet now. It's probably a bot. It's probably like a Russian or Chinese or Iranian bot or some shit. It's either a bot or a coward, which that's who's left in MAGA is bots and cowards. You guys are friends? Yeah, we're like, we don't really talk. I've met him a couple times and we're on good terms. Like I like him and I think he likes me, but I'll request, but what about Parker? Yeah, it's been a while since I've hopped on with Parker. I could hop on with him. J-Man, why are you not in the requests? These people are such fucking losers, bro. Oh my god. Hold on. Does Naima go live? I don't know. Maybe she does. He's done for the day. Who is? Dean is? or Parker.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up?
Oh, are fans allowed right now too, or no? Just debaters.
Yeah, you're good.
Fans, dude, I'm a big fan, man. Guys like you, Ethan, Nose, Destiny. Man, you guys are like keeping a lot of us sane people from going on like the brink of destruction, bro. Like it's so many of these people on the right aren't just like the crazies, dude. Like there are like sane people that are on the right, and the scariest thing about it is that I almost wonder if they know how disingenuous they are sometimes, and it's like a grift. Versus how many actually believe it. And they're more dangerous to me than like the kind of right-wing schism in a way.
I think a lot of them see it as a necessary evil because they hate the American left so much that they'll accept fascism in its place.
Yeah, it is this weird kind of dark, competitive, like authoritarian, like right-wing police state we're like headed for. I was just watching Ethan on a panel, and they were talking about the E-files, and every time he like tried to like ask a question and then the panel host would answer, right, they would all just like jump in because they knew he had already had his next rebuttal, because like he was asking like when the investigations concluded, and I looked it up and it was like 2007 and 2019 I think was kind of the timeline. And it's crazy because like they'll blame Biden so much, but it's like Trump basically had it right there too, right? You know what I mean?
And you bring up Biden, it's like when you talk about cognitive decline, Trump is so much worse than Biden ever was. And I was someone who was very, very critical about Biden's cognitive decline, but Trump is, I don't know if you saw the press conference today, his brain is melting in real time.
No, dude, you're so right. The craziest thing about that, Destiny like had the perfect take on this too. It's like when Biden's brain would fumble, he was actually like trying to find the right things and the words to say, right? He was like trying to actually talk about like
he was thinking.
Whereas Trump, it's like he can just ramble incoherently and it doesn't sound wrong because there's no substance. He just talks about all these random different things. I hung out with this guy, Great White Sharks, Hannibal Lecter. Cognitive tests.
30 minutes talking about how big the explosions were and how fast the missiles were.
Oh, look at that God, dude! It's so scary. Like, and it's so scary how so many people they overlook like so many of these people that are very like kind of like for the conflict right now. It's always like because they can point to like an overthrowing of a government, right? Like with the IRGC or something that's like worse. They use that to like glaze J6 as like, yeah, the guardrails prevented that, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't condemn something like that and not ever want the possibility of like that happening again.
Also, I don't buy the guardrails held argument, because if the guardrails held, Trump would be in jail after January 6th. The fact that he was able to, first of all, avoid jail, second of all, become president shows the guardrails never fucking worked in the first place.
Yeah, you're not wrong, because like criminal immunity and I'll never forgive people like McConnell and Republicans on the Senate floor
for not
like
impeaching
McConnell.
him,
Yeah, like McConnell gives a whole speech about how he did it. It's his fault, and then
they could have gotten the votes for sure. If they tried, they could have gotten the votes to convict him, I think.
Yeah, it's awful. So my question is, right, were there complications on why like Biden or Obama didn't release the files, whereas like with Trump, when he got back into office, it would have been way easier?
I think the honest answer is that previous administrations like Biden and Obama, it wasn't really on their radar and they didn't really care much about it because probably the DOJ was handling it and they weren't getting like daily briefings on the Epstein files. So it'd have to be something where they're going out of their way to say, hey, can you bring me the Epstein files? I want to look at these. So I don't think it was as big a part of the cultural zeitgeist as it is now.
Yeah, and then of course the panel host that Ethan was on, she kept trying to say that like DeSantis was trying to release them in Florida and that Democrats blocked it. I don't know how true that is though.
Yeah, and someone brought up a good point in the chat that there was appeals going on. There was ongoing litigation that was still happening in around like 2018, 2019, I'm pretty sure. So I don't even know how much ability they would have had to do it in the first place. But like, point being, Trump is the one who allowed it to enter the zeitgeist and allowed it to be framed as like he's going to be the one to release it. So the people who try to blame like, oh, why didn't Obama do it? Why didn't Biden do it? They never really talked about it or ran on it. No one in their administration talked about it or ran on it. And it just wasn't considered as big of a deal back then.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And my whole thing too is that if like Bill Clinton and Hillary have to depose, then both Trump and his wife should have to depose, because even like I'm pretty sure he met her because of Jeffrey Epstein. I think that was like a big reason how he met her. So, I mean, that's crazy.
They should have to. I'm glad that Bill and Hillary went because it sets a precedent that now Trump and Melania have to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cooked.
Conservative would like once again glaze over that with like say that was lawfare and then when you look at like Manafort, right, Trump's campaign chair, that guy had FISA warrants, following him, FISA warrants following him before he even went to work with Trump, because all the money that he was laundering, that he was getting paid by Russian oligarchs and pro-Russian Ukrainian oligarchs. Like Paul Manafort is as quasi-Russian stooge as it gets.
The lawfare arguments
it's just so crazy,
maddening, because they're the ones who do lawfare, and they were smart to plant that seed in the public conversation back in 2017 with the impeachment stuff, or the Mueller stuff. Like, they have done such a good job of delegitimizing the justice system when it's legitimately investigating them, and then using it to investigate their political opponents. Like, every accusation is a confession.
I know what you mean, and because I'm kind of going from when I talk to certain narco capitalists.
Hold on, your voice is cutting in and out a little bit.
Right, and throughout like history. Is my signal okay now, or is it still bad?
I can hear you right now. Yeah.
How is it better?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it you think when I talk to certain anarcho types, right? When we talk about like history, we talk about I talk to them about like the Third Reich. They'll because of like maybe what happened in like Russia with Lenin or Stalin, they'll try to like make the assumption that the leader of the Third Reich, right, you heard that he was somehow this leftist, and I feel like maybe economically he might be left to like what an ANCAP is, but I still feel like he is a center right-leaning totalitarian all the way.
You know about Mustache Man?
Mustache Man, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard to fit Nazism into the modern political left-right binary, because right-wing, I mean, it also depends on if it's across an economic axis or like a social policy axis. So like Trump is very right-wing when it comes to social issues. When it comes to economic issues, he's kind of, whatever works for him that day. Some days he wants small government. Some days he wants to fucking take a 10% stake in Intel without getting any approval from Congress. So when it comes to like Hitler and stuff, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty hard to argue that Hitler was a right-wing person. I mean, maybe there was some economic policy here and there that you could classify as left-wing, but that's like a huge cope when people act like he was a left-winger. It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he definitely, because when you look at like Stalin, right? I mean, I'm not a fan of him either. I'm not a communist, but like when you look at like Stalin, he was probably just as authoritarian as Hitler, but not nearly like as willing, I feel like, to be with like kind of like the private sector. And then like Trump, same thing. Like Trump made like these ANCAPs have like this kind of the same way that I think like sometimes utopian leftism, right? Because I consider myself like a maybe center left, maybe, the same way that kind of like utopian socialists kind of view everything to the right of them as authoritarian. I feel like it's the same. I feel like the same weird right wing ANCAP libertarians, they see like anything to the left of them as like collectivism and then going to authoritarianism.
Yeah, and it's funny because the ANCAP people have no home in the modern Republican Party. Like the Ron Pauls and those types of people, they're irrelevant as fucking modern American politics. So like they can talk about we're the purest ones, we're the most right wing ones. But it's like the people that own the right wing right now are like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Trump and all these people.
What would you say, like, where do you kind of fit like on the political axis, like an 8-dimensional political axis?
I actually recently just took that, what is it called, like the 9 axes or whatever, this like very long political test that was like 5,000 questions long. Let me see if I can find my results. I think I have pretty heterodox views. Fuck, did I screenshot this? I think I did. But yeah, broadly speaking, I would say, I don't know. I would say I'm probably like on the left, but I have pretty heterodox views. I don't neatly fit into many categories, but I would say I'm a progressive. That's the term that I like to use for myself.
Yeah, you strike me as someone progressive, and then like, but more on the liberty end than the authority end as well.
Yeah, I'm a liberal progressive, so I like still really believe in the importance of negative rights and like limited government. But I also believe we have to have like a welfare state and like proper involvement in the economy from the government.
Yeah. Man, the way you debated that, I got hip to you because I watched when you debated Andrew Wilson, right? Because Destiny stopped debating him because he was just so bad faith.
Yeah.
Dude, the way you debated Andrew Wilson was pretty phenomenal. Like I was like the way, yeah, like you. I mean, you really you could tell he kept trying to do the stupid meta conversations with you. It's so bad faith because he knows he can't win, so he has to he has to try to attack everyone's arguments semantically. My head sometimes.
And it's not even a good faith semantic argument. He just does it for the purpose of derailing the conversation. He doesn't actually care what you're trying to say. Because typically if you argue semantics, you're trying to clarify like what do people mean when they use a word. But he wants to tell you what you mean without asking you.
So bad. What is your stance all in all on the US and Israel's ties? Like do you think it's do you think like Israel should be considered our allies or no?
I think we need to not only cut off military aid to Israel, but we need to apply diplomatic and economic pressure on them if they want to maintain any kind of relationship with us. So like voting against them at the UN and maybe even imposing sanctions where it's like if you guys don't stop expanding West Bank settlements, if you guys don't stop all this expansionist stuff you're doing and take accountability for what I think is a genocide in Gaza, then you're going to have to actually face sanctions from the United States and pressure at the UN.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't necessarily.
Because I blame Israel a lot for what's going on in Iran right now. This is their wet dream. They've wanted this for so long, and it fucks us over massively.
Do you think like going back to like 1947 or the 60s? Do you think Israel's partition stuff or the deals in the 60s were good faith, or do you think there was a lot of bad things?
The issue, as far as I can tell, is you had like the British making promises that were conflicting. Like they were simultaneously telling Zionists in Europe, they're like, oh yeah, you guys can have this piece of land, but then they were also telling the Arabs that were there, like, oh yeah, once the Ottoman Empire collapses, you guys can have your own nation state. And the British tended to do this, it seems like, in the 20th century, where like they would make conflicting promises and draw lines that make absolutely no sense and then just leave, and everyone else has to face the consequences. So I mean, the way that everything started in the first place was like such a complete clusterfuck. And then I understand, like, I think if you go back to the beginnings of this conflict, I think that the Palestinians were in the right, because they're saying, okay, the Ottoman Empire is about to fall and there's this massive rise of like Arab nationalism. So like we want our own sovereign state here. And then all of a sudden you have a bunch of immigrants coming in from Europe who are saying we want to establish a Zionist state. And they're like, yo, what the hell? We just got independence from the Ottoman Empire. Now these people are here. So I blame a lot, sort of like the British for creating that circumstance in the first place. But yeah, it's become a very intractable, difficult problem to solve.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't know why I go so like back and forth on it. Like I'm not like a super like Zionist, right? But I kind of understand Israel wanting to exist as a state, but I also
I understand the thought behind it, but then the question is, exist where, right? It exists in like the area where they are now or somewhere else, right? Because like there's a question of, okay, do these people want to have some kind of sovereign state or some country? That's one question. But then the next question is, where do they have it? And are they taking something away from someone else when they establish it? And that's where I think it's an issue. And I did just, if anyone wants to see my 9-axis results, I did just pull them up. Hold on. I'm going to remove you real quick, and you can hop back in the guest request just because I can't change my scene without removing guests. So you can hop back in the guest request if you want. I just have to do that to get here, but this is where I stand. I don't know how to, let me shrink this a little maybe. Hold on. Maybe this is better. I don't know why this timer is here. Hold on. So I have this, and then I have this. I don't know if these are being cut off or if you guys can see them.
No, yeah, I think I can see.
Yeah. So I think it's a pretty. The thing that I lean most in favor of is globalism, which is funny. Everything else, I think I have decently nuanced views. Let me see. Neutral, federal versus unitary. Yeah. Democracy and authority. The questions for this axis are interesting. I don't know if I like the framing of this as being authority, as if it's like authoritarianism. Why do you like globalism? I just think that like if you look at human beings, a lot of our problems just come from creating outgroups. Like when you create outgroups, whether it's a different ethnic group or religious group or nationality, it is like the root of conflict. And I think the ideal is that we should all view ourselves as part of the same in-group. And I think globalism is the way to do that, but obviously not a very popular opinion. And other than that, I think I'm pretty moderate on most things.
Do you support the U.S. efforts to help Ukraine?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah,
I think we should be.
Yeah, that one. I mean, that's crazy. I know, like just the other day, about Ukraine hit about 40% of or they hit like Russia's refineries. I think. I can understand why Zelensky feels the way he does. Every time Trump and Putin come together, oh, we're gonna do a deal for a ceasefire, and then the next day Putin like literally starts dropping boom booms again. You know.
Yeah, and Trump believes everything Putin says at face value, which is insane. He constantly legitimizes what Putin is doing. He's threatening now to pull out of NATO, which is fucking insane. What website is this? I think it's called like 8 axes or 9. Is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Okay, yeah, it's 9 axes, I think.
I really wonder if there wouldn't have been so much obstruction from Trump, what really could have come from that Mueller report. You know what I mean? Like what really, like we'll never know, and maybe someday. But
yeah, and for me, the bigger thing in the Mueller report is the Jack Smith indictments. Those are, especially the documents case, it's so bad for him. It's actually horrible. And the fact that Merrick Garland slow walked it and we never got a proper trial before the election is crazy.
What happened with the plot to overturn the election? Because I read the indictments 3 times, and yeah, it's just like
they were like strong indictments. Yeah,
he knew he was lying. I love how people to this day mens rea, and even and if that was true, right? He's still breaking the law because I can tell my neighbors that your house is mine and I get to take your home, right? Because I think that I owned it once and then you stole it from me and I never did. And it's like, yeah, I should be put in a home. And if I go and attack them, I'm going to be charged with a crime and then put in a home. So it's like, even if Trump, which he didn't, he knew he was lying. But even in their world where he didn't know he was lying, like he thought it was actually stolen, that's like, he still committed crimes and he should still not be president.
I agree. Yeah. And it's like, this is something people miss, is that he knows he's lying. He doesn't believe the shit he says on Truth. Like he knows he's lying to his supporters. That's the whole point.
I mean, his whole entire admin, I mean, even like Barr and Pence, right? I'm not fans of either of them, but like I will give them at least the credit for having like the guts to like.
Yeah, for doing the bare minimum, if not aiding and abetting a coup against the United States government. Yeah.
Because these people like Todd Blanche, Stephen Miller, Kash Patel, right? They'll all do it. Like JD Vance, right? He'll like I've had like these weird like horror movie visions in my brain where like Vance is running for president, right? And then Gavin Newsom or whoever runs against him wins, but it's only by like 3 or 4 swing states because of how the map works. And Vance has the gavel in his hand right after 2 months of another fraud campaign, and like him and the Republicans are like, yeah, we're not going to certify the results, we're going to overturn it, and then like there's
that's
another
risk for the midterms that Mike Johnson and JD Vance like we're not going to swear people into the Senate and the House if we think that like it's too sus or something.
Yeah, that's so insane. Like it's like I didn't actually. So I didn't vote for Trump the first time, but I was like a young, I guess, like 20-year-old white guy, right? And I was kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid because I'm 30 now. I was 21 when he first got elected, but I didn't vote for him. But I thought in 2020 I was gonna vote for him. Like I got registered, and then even though the primary right doesn't really matter as the sitting president, I actually voted for him in the primaries. But then I had a friend who, by election time, convinced me to not do it, to vote Democrat, and then I voted for Biden, and then I registered Democrat. I voted for the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and then I ended up voting for Kamala too. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that I was able to be kind of enlightened on what I wasn't seeing.
Yeah, I wish more people were able to change their mind in that way, but it seems like a lot of people that are still left, they've dug their heels and they're not going to leave.
Yeah.
And to Can saying not extreme secular cringe, I think the reason it's 58% secular is because I believe in complete separation of like the state from religion. But the reason it's 42% religious is I think there's an important societal social role in terms of cohesion for spirituality, whatever it is, whether it's like an organized religion or something else. I think like secular materialism is not great for having a coherent set of higher ideals for a country. I don't think that works really well. But
yeah, are you religious at all, or?
Religion. I mean, I believe in God. I believe in a higher power, but I'm not necessarily super like following organized doctrine. I think that stuff is kind of cringe.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I used to. I mean, my girlfriend, she's kind of into it. I mean, but but yeah, I was Christian, and I think there's like good things about it. But yeah, I lean more towards.
I agree.
Like,
I think the
secularism.
recent trend to like shit on religion is a little cringe. You can shit on religion when it's like bad, right? Because there's many instances of people having religious trauma or like religion trying to insert itself into politics. But for a lot of people, religion is just like something that gives them purpose and makes them happy. I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's just when it's fused with like politics, like the way Vance says we have to be like a Christian country. It's like that's where it's like it's just I really think that's the guy who they're gonna go with. I know like a lot of the kind of middle of the line. I've seen like old guard Democrat, like kind of even people that are Jewish, like they really want it to be Rubio so badly, and I'm like,
I don't think
Peter
so.
Thiel and Musk aren't gonna let that happen.
Yeah,
Like it's gonna.
They have
be
plans for Vance. They put Vance there for a reason. They have plans for him for sure.
They want him to be more authoritarian than Trump.
And
Like
I think what they want, I think they want Trump to die before the end of his term so Vance can get in there. I think they want him to be president before because he's going to have a much easier time running if he's already in power in 2020.
Yeah, that is so true. I think he would be worse than I think he would be worse than Trump. I think he would be like, I think Vance would really be like, I feel like, because the whole like Citizens United, right? Like, and they're kind of feeding off all of this stuff with immigration and like Europe and they're feeding off of maybe some of like, maybe because certain people like aren't like have kind of like taken a very like negative stance towards our military because of what's going on. So I feel like people are like, they're always able to like frame it as like the left is going so left and they're moving us right. And I feel like they don't see on the other side of that if we were to go, because it's this weird, right? Like people talk about white nationalism, and I don't think they realize that multiracial white nationalism is a real thing in the sense that like I know 30% of ICE agents are like Hispanic, so it's like there can be this
lot of
world.
Black and Hispanic Nick Fuentes fans. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, there is this world where you consolidate enough of minorities into a majority to then oppress the remaining majority that don't support what you want, and then to specifically disproportionately oppress the minorities. Like that is a real world that we could end up living in, and I just don't I don't think we're not going to see it till it happens, or hopefully we stop it, in these
there's
next
definitely
few cycles.
some really crazy right-wing extremism brewing, and people say this like the next guy after Trump is going to make Trump look like child's play. He's going to be a very probably smarter and way more ideologically motivated. That's the scary thing, is that the one, I guess, kind of good thing about Trump is he's not very ideological, but once you get someone who is that central to the Republican Party and they're smart and ideological, which I think is JD Vance. JD Vance is a very intelligent person. That's where shit gets like very risky.
How do you think though that like, and like I said, it's a combination of just people really want the authoritarianism and then certain people don't. How do you think the Republican Party, right, is able to kind of shield themselves though right now from being extreme, and they're just able to kind of then use like really, really far leftist culture to say the Democrats are extreme, and then they shield themselves simultaneously because of this weird right-wing schism, and it's like it's covering up how authoritarian the literally the majority of both Republican Congresses are.
I think the Republican Party is like really, 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 really cooked right now. I think that their base of support is extremely small. Their own supporters are not very energized to turn out and vote for them. And I think if we have free and fair elections, which I don't think we will, but if we do, you're going to see like Obama 2008 level landslides where we're flipping the Texas Senate seat and the Iowa and Alaska Senate seat. But which is why Trump wants to interfere with the elections, because they know they're cooked. Everyone hates Trump now. His approval rating is historically low. I think with independents, it's lower than Richard Nixon's ever was, or even George Bush's. So this is like a situation where the Republicans are acting like everything's cool and they're kind of doing business as usual, but behind the scenes they're panicking.
Yeah, it definitely does seem like that. It is crazy how he is like, as much as his approval rating is historically low, he's like the most popular Republican president ever. Like
Republicans, yeah.
Yeah, like even when Bush's approval rating was so low, right? It was coming from like multiple like
Republicans
groups.
hated Bush too a little bit, yeah, compared to Trump.
Yeah. But Trump is like, it's so crazy how he's so ideologically loved by Republicans.
Yeah.
because one thing I would really like to see in this country, right? Because I live in Maryland and I work around a lot of like immigrants, right? And a lot of them are really good people, and I know a lot of immigrants too. I think like something like what Obama proposed, something like what the Cato Institute has proposed, like we should have a way that people can like, pay into like a permanent residency, enter like a 10-year program. Any of them that haven't paid back taxes, right, can pay their back taxes. The ones that already are paying taxes, which is a lot of them, can, and then combine with that, fix the process from abroad. That way we're never in another position where we have a lot of people undocumented in legal limbo. We can have like a more efficient like visa system that can maybe adjust to permanent residencies, and people that are here, long-term residents that aren't documented can, like that's
this
way
is
more
the common sense immigration reform that probably 70% of the country would agree on, and Trump creates like artificial division on immigration. I think the vast majority of people actually agree on immigration, where it's like if someone is actually a danger to society, obviously deport them, and then if they've been here for a while and they're following the rules, then make them pay maybe some kind of fine or like back taxes like you were saying, and then get them on the path to like a green card at least, if not citizenship.
We should definitely have something like that. Yeah,
I agree.
Do you see yourself in the future like with anybody like Ethan or like Hutch or Destiny doing like team debates against maybe people like the Moderate Case, Nick Mattel, and other people on the right?
I've never really done I'm mutuals with Ethan. Ethan's awesome. Hutch I've never spoken to, and Destiny I know he knows of me, but I've never really spoken to him either. And with Destiny, here's my honest thing, okay? The allegations against him are concerning to me. They just are. And it's like, I'm not saying he did or didn't do anything, but it's like until the court case there is resolved, I don't know how much I want to associate with him. That's just me being honest. But like, I appreciate the work he does, just practically speaking. Like, he's very good at debating, especially Trump supporters and embarrassing them. So I feel some level of conflict about that because, like, David's saying Unfuck America. I feel some level of conflict because I love what Unfuck America is doing. I think it's very important, and I love the format of it. But it's like, I'll just be honest. Like, if I'm sitting at an Unfuck America booth and someone comes and asks me, "What do you think of Destiny's allegations?" I'm gonna say I'm inclined to believe in those allegations, and then now it's like awkward, and it's like maybe I probably just shouldn't go to that actually.
Yeah. Do you think whatever happens with those allegations, right? Whatever punishment he faces, whatever, do you think he could still come out of that and kind of come back into? Because I mean, I'm not saying it's good. It looks really bad. It looks like he was like extremely irresponsible. It looks like he had some type of like connection to these like women, right? Like, you know what I mean? But I know what you mean. Like, it's extremely like irresponsible. But do you think there's still a world where he can come out of that and it's not like he's like a bad person, but he just made a really bad mistake? Like that.
There's a lot to consider here because you're getting at a very deep question of like restorative justice and like if someone does something bad, like can they be redeemed or are they like sullied for life? And the thing is, like, I'm not too familiar with how he's addressing it, but I don't know if he's even accepting that he did these things or if he's denying it or what. And I know the civil case litigation is still ongoing, and it's such a messy topic to litigate. What did he do and what parts of it were illegal versus just a bad decision, and which parts of it could he be forgiven for if he changes versus things that are too far. And it's like there's so much toxicity around that topic where I start to wonder if I was to join something like Unfuck America, if I would even be contributing on a net level, because again, it's like I would feel bad if I'm sitting at an Unfuck America tent and then someone asks me, do you think he did it? And I say yes. Now I'm like, I was flown out on their dime to do their event and I'm bad mouthing one of their own members. So that's kind of the tension I feel right now. And it's like, I'm not out here saying you should never watch Destiny. And, I think he does a great thing for what he does, which is, combating the right. But there is also an extent to which there's certain hills I don't want to die on, if that makes sense. There are certain fights that I'm just like, I don't know if I want to pick this fight. And then now for the next 3 months, every time I'm in public, people are asking me about this one topic instead of something else. So I'll be honest, I'm conflicted on it. But yeah, someone said, same lawyer that Prince Andrew and I think Bill Cosby had. So like stuff like that for me is like, I can understand why someone would decide, you know what? I think I'm doing more good on this tour and like I'm getting a chance to spread my message. I can understand that thought process, but for me, it's just it's a little bit tough. I go back and forth on it, but yeah.
Wait, he actually has the same lawyer as Prince Andrew and Bill Cosby?
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. I guess
that's like tough. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
If someone asks me about that, I want to be able to be honest about it. And I don't want to be in a situation where if I'm part of that tour and someone asks me, then I'm all of a sudden either throwing people on the tour under the bus or I'm lying. I don't want to do either of those things, right? So it's like, if I'm not in that position, then I avoid that situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know the allegations were around like he shared content without the consent, right, with one of the girls, and then the other one she was like.
And from what I can tell, I don't even think that that's disputed, right? It seems like he said that it was a mistake, and it seems like the thing for me that was a red flag is when people that were friends with him were saying, "Yeah, this is fucked up." Because I'm like, oh, if people who know you, I think this is a good judge usually is like, if there's allegations against someone and people who are close to them are like, yeah, these allegations are true, then I'm like, I don't know about this. But I take your point on like, okay, if someone does something like that, are they to be banished from society forever? And the honest question is, I don't know if I can say that because I'm not the person who was victimized here. You know what I mean? So it's like, I believe in rehabilitative and restorative justice. I'm not a fan of saying that if you make a mistake once, then, you're fucking jettisoned from society. But at the same time, you can't just gloss over things like that, especially if the victim involved doesn't want to do that, So.
No, and if it was like something like like certain people, right, like people who did stuff with like Epstein, right, those people can never be redeemed. You know what I'm saying, or restored. They, you know what I'm saying. So
especially because like they don't even regret what they did. They're just mad they got caught.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I guess like don't get me wrong. Like I'm I'm not saying like I'm defending Destiny. I just say like because
I get what you're saying. And like this is why like I think it's awesome that David joined Unfuck America too, and I think he's doing great work there. And I've told Z as well. Like I think what Unfuck America is doing on net is a positive thing. They're getting people registered and they're taking the fight to these college campuses. I love everything about Unfuck America. It's just like, I don't want to join an organization where I'm going to be at their detriment. And the reality is, if someone asked me my opinions about that, I would have to either A, lie to defend Destiny, or B, tell the truth and then throw Destiny under the bus while being a part of his crew, which both of those things feel wrong to me.
Yeah. Is Ethan a part of Unfuck America as well?
I think he is. They have a really, really good roster. They do really great work. So, like, shout out to them. People should watch them and donate to them, because if you donate to them, you're not giving money to Destiny. You're giving money to fucking Democratic candidates and stuff. So, I will cheer them on from a safe distance, social distancing.
It's crazy because Ethan's actually texted me on Instagram and I watched him. Like he's like it's cool. Like sometimes it's like humbling. Like when like especially like that's why I appreciate you for bringing me up on here. Also, as just like a fan, not someone you're necessarily debating. And it really is great. Like when you can get in contact with like the creators you're following and talking to. Because dude, I'm kind of new to some of this stuff, like actually getting on here and debating, and I've had some really tough debates against some people on the right, and I just like, I'm not even gonna lie, there's times where I got off, and I like when I debated like Nick Mattel, right, we were debating immigration numbers, and the way he was using the heritage and like CIS numbers, and he was still inflating them. Like he said the net increase in undocumented migrants under Biden was 14 million, and I'm like, dude, I don't even think you're reading the data right. Their data doesn't even say that.
Is the CIS the one that's just like basically a right-wing think tank?
Yeah, and even they said it was only like 6
all
million.
their shit.
I don't know if they necessarily lie, but they definitely are heavy bias Trump. Like they frame.
Okay, no, I've seen some of their studies. They play very fast and loose with numbers, where they intentionally misrepresent stuff. So, like, I think one thing they did is like they'll take American citizens who are children of undocumented immigrants, and then they will frame them as being illegals on welfare, even though they're citizens. So they do a lot of shady stuff with their numbers.
But I don't think the net increase under Biden was 14 million or even 10 million. I think at most it was maybe about 7, but probably more like 5.5 to 6.
I'd say like 6 to 8 million probably.
Yeah,
and those are not people who are sneaking past the border. They're asylum seekers who are coming to ports of entry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Only about probably like out of those, I'm saying like what bumps it up to maybe like 6 to 8 million would be like the ones that were the getaways. Biden didn't parole all 6 of those people in there. You know what I mean? That's like but the crazy thing is like they largely helped the economy. The Cato Institute just did the white paper about like how much immigrants actually reduce the deficit.
Collapsing birth rates. These people complain about that, but they don't want population growth from immigrants. They just want to make white people have more babies, I guess, which is weird, but.
Yeah, it would be cool to watch you debate Nick Mattel, but I mean, I don't know. He was
that
being
name
like,
sounds really familiar. Nick, how do you spell that? Mattel?
Nickmatau.
Matau.
He mostly just debates like the pro Israel stuff because he's like a no-eyed. his wife is Jewish, I think, right? Which I mean, I don't think he's like a bad guy. Like, I just think like that's just that's just his like belief system. But it's crazy. Like when I was debating him on like something that wasn't a part of that topic, like when I was talking about like immigration, it just felt like he was so quick to like shoot down a lot of my arguments. Even with the how they say like 60% of the people that were arrested were like criminals. Even that number is super misleading because that could be people that were charged with crimes that like haven't even been convicted yet. And then like I think only like 14% of all the people that were arrested for a violent crime as well. So and I feel like that number is only gonna like get like lower of people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that make these arguments they're bad faith actors. So I don't even stop to hesitate about. I wonder why they said, because a lot of them know they're lying. I think, I don't know this Nick guy specifically, maybe he's different, but at this point, people that are parroting and towing the MAGA party line, those people I don't think can be taken seriously and can't be treated as honest actors. There's no way that you are this smart and this well-spoken and you have this big of a platform and you don't see what you're supporting and what's actually going on here. So yeah.
And it's also crazy, like, right, like, so when Biden was president, right, we couldn't trust any government sources, or we couldn't trust any independent sources, or we couldn't trust any government sources, only independent sources. And then now that Trump's president, and even like independent, like U.S. Census type sources, like FOIA sources are all saying that they're like inflating the numbers of the people that they arrested and deported, or they're inflating the number with criminals. Well, now it's like, oh, well, we trust it. It's gospel. Can't trust anything independent.
I don't know that we can trust any numbers coming from the executive branch right now. I'm very suspicious of all those numbers.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Because if you release bad numbers, he fires you. So like, who's left?
Yeah, and no, it's crazy. He fired the counterintelligence from the FBI for Iran because they investigated his documents case. Doge, right? They fire a bunch of doctors and they have to spend more money to hire them back. They mislabeled spending cuts from 8 million to 8 billion. Even if you look at like the cuts to the Department of Education, right, that's not even going to necessarily make education more efficient. It's going to probably like see losses in teachers. Hospitals are at risk because of the Medicaid cuts. Like the big beautiful bill, right, does all these cuts to spending, but then we're still going to spend more money because of military spending and tax cuts. So we're still going to have to borrow more money. Oh, I don't even get the Trumpism. I don't even like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it. I think it's just people who are disturbed doing disturbing things. I don't think there's any logic to anything that they do. It's just a bunch of people with serious personality disorders and like demented points of view and like hatred and bigotry in their heart who have been given free reign over the federal government.
Yeah, like we can't even do like we can do tariffs, right? We can do tons and tons of tariffs that like shock the whole economy, but we can't do like basic income taxes that even if certain like think tanks might be right that it could in the short term, right, maybe scale back some GDP and jobs growth, right? It would still scale back the deficits to the point that might actually
and you
be
could
better
use that
for borrowing
money to
interest.
do infrastructure, and the infrastructure would boost the GDP way more than the private sector money would have. So there's even ways to compensate for that.
Yeah, that's true, because then that money would then go to like contracted companies, I guess, right? And
Trump was the infrastructure guy, and we've never gotten any infrastructure, even proposal from him, let alone infrastructure bill, which like the best way to boost GDP and create jobs is like a big infrastructure package, and we kind of need one in this country. So it's kind of crazy to me we haven't done that properly.
It's so crazy too how like people are like so quick to like talk about energy prices with electricity and like the water shortages and all that, and it's like, look what Biden was trying to do with the green energy and the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
And now and it's like, we want to talk about like having independent sources of energy. Like we were still drilling at record amounts under Biden and trying to get green energy infrastructure.
A lot
now
of
Trump's
the
like,
Inflation Reduction Act stuff has just been completely dismantled and destroyed by Trump. And it's funny because Trump talks about China is eating our lunch. One of the places where China is eating our lunch is solar. And we were supposed to expand our solar, and Trump's just destroyed that. And China eats our lunch when it comes to solar.
yeah. How many, because I know like one of the out-of-pocket rescissions that he did, right, impoundments, ended up being signed off on by a majority in Congress. Isn't there still money that's currently tied up though in like his impoundment scheme that like hasn't, and like it really is like suspect, like quasi like illegal that
yeah,
he's
I know
doing
one
that?
argument he was making is that even if Congress had apportioned federal aid money to certain countries, because he's in charge of foreign policy, he can pause the federal aid and like revoke it or something, which that never made sense. Ultimately, they reverse engineer these arguments. Like he wants to do something with congressional funds, and then he just tells his lawyers come up with some kind of argument to justify this. So it's never really legally sound. And Congress has already abdicated. I mean, he told the oil executives before Congress about the Venezuela stuff. He didn't really consult or get any kind of consensus from Congress before starting Operation Epic Fury. The way that he allocates money is just whatever he feels like doing, and then he just fights it in court, and then half the times he wins, and then because of the Costa decision, where now there's no more universal injunctions, that decision is going to come back to bite people in the ass, especially in the election. Because here's one thing that people don't talk about: if Trump does something super illegal and super shady in a bunch of different states on midterm election night, no district judge can issue a universal injunction. They can only stop him in their district. So anywhere where there's a red district, like Texas, like Alaska, like Iowa, where Democrats want to win those seats, until you appeal up to the Supreme Court, Trump's going to have free reign. So
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
That is so awful, and the immunity ruling is so awful. I've kind of like read
It's
arguments.
Disgusting, yeah.
So it's like in a hypothetical world, right, where let's say he never got immunity, and he still somehow became president, right? Would he still be able to do like the crypto stuff the way he's doing it, or has the immunity essentially given him that much more shield from
the immunity actually doesn't matter very much right now, because the DOJ is never going to indict Trump when he owns the DOJ. He's made the DOJ into his own personal law firm, right? All Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais, he basically purged all the top DOJ leadership and then just put in a bunch of his personal lawyers to run the DOJ. And now it's like he could, like he said, shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and whoever his new AG is not going to indict him on that shit. So whether or not he had the immunity from the Supreme Court, he was going to be untouchable for these next 2 years, because I honestly think even if he's impeached and convicted, there's a chance he goes, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? I'm not going to actually leave. Like, how are you going to enforce that, right? Because every single enforcement mechanism exists in the executive branch, and there's no real proper mechanism to remove him from office unless he actually wants to leave.
The craziest thing about that, right, is that and that would be like the ultimate cementing of a constitutional crisis if he was impeached, convicted, right, and then if he just says I'm not leaving, like,
how do you make him leave at that point? Yeah.
Do you think the Supreme Court would step in and try to issue an order to the marshals to remove him, or do you think that they would be too scared that
the Supreme Court is already too scared, and the reason the Supreme Court is making some of these really weird rulings is they're trying to give Trump just enough to keep him satisfied. So I saw reporting on this that apparently this is known amongst Supreme Court staffers that sometimes they'll give Trump a little win to kind of satiate him, because they know if they're very, very antagonistic towards Trump, then they raise the risk of Trump saying, okay, fuck you guys anyways, I'm not going to listen to you. Amy Coney Barrett was asked about this on the New York Times, where he said, oh, what do you do if Trump says, I'm not following your order, right? Because what if he just says, you and what army? How are you going to make me do this? And you can watch this interview. Amy Coney Barrett looked terrified when she was asked that question. She started stuttering. She had no answer. So these Supreme Court justices, I think they know that the checks and balances are kind of a paper tiger, because the only branch of government that can do anything is the executive branch. So all Congress and the courts can do is write words on a piece of paper and then say, pretty please follow these words. But the president could just say no.
Yeah, it's so crazy you say that when evaluating the Supreme Court, because when I look at that too, I look at the Gorsuch, the Roberts, and the Amy's of the world, and they definitely still side with him on so much, but they don't like what he's doing. And then I feel like Kavanaugh gets in this weird place where it's a competition between him and Trump for authority, right? He likes Trump, but he doesn't feel like. But then when I look at Thomas, right, and Alito, I just feel like this is there's some manifesto in their brain that's been manifesting for the last X amount of years.
Thomas
they actually want a king,
an actual lunatic. I don't know what's
they want a king. Yeah, and right? You know that Clarence Thomas's wife was like emailing people in Arizona, right, about the Stop the Steal, right? Don't vote to certify the election. Dude, the Rusty Bowers stuff is so insane. Like, dude, Rusty Bowers and the Attorney General of Arizona at that time were the ultimate like Trump people. Bomovich literally says in the HBO documentary Stop the Steal, I would have loved to prosecute a bunch of liberals for voter fraud, but like none of this was like, there just wasn't any accuracy or legitimacy.
You think that's bad? I'm telling everyone, watch Texas, Alaska, and Iowa in these midterms, especially Texas, because Texas is a place where if it's James Tallarico versus Ken Paxton, I think there's a very real scenario where James Tallarico wins by like 0.5 points, 0.7 points, 1.2 points. Very small margin, but nonetheless wins. And what happens if on election night, the projections start showing, oh shit, a Democrat is going to win the Texas Senate seat? The first thing Trump does is call Greg Abbott, call the Attorney General of Texas, and tell them, I need you to stop all voting, declare a state of emergency. I'm going to get an FBI warrant to go in, just like I did in Fulton County, and seize these ballots, break the chain of custody. I'm going to declare a national emergency because Iran hacked the ballots or too many illegals came into Texas to vote for Tallarico. And then all they have to do is break the chain of custody on the ballots, which the Texas state government would help them do. They're crazy people. And then on top of that, now, thanks to the Supreme Court and the Boss decision, candidates have automatic standing to challenge any election rule. This was not the case after the 2020 election. So now all those same legal challenges that were thrown out because they didn't have standing, now they're going to have standing. And that's what people need to be paying attention to.
I didn't get your live flagged for anything, did I? Because for some reason it's saying like a warning sign.
I got my own live flagged for talking about this shit.
Yeah, it's insane. Like I'm starting to wonder, like, because I know I like one time I got flagged and they said it was like misinformation, and then I like had to correct it, and then I went and like fact checked what I said, and like what I said wasn't even wrong. So
the TikTok auto moderation makes zero sense, which is why I'm trying to expand to other platforms a little bit more.
You know what's so crazy too? I told so many people in 2024, right, what would happen if he won again, and that all these things would happen. And it's almost like some of them that like in that time period said it would be a bad thing if that happened. Now, like either just kind of like the far right people are just like, oh, well, we want something more authoritarian anyways, or like the people who are like loyal to Trump. Some of them are just like, oh, well, I kind of get what he's saying now. The way you said it didn't sound good, but the way he's justifying it is justified.
Yeah, a lot of people, they first said, I mean, this is the classic thing. Trump would never do that, but then he does it. So actually it's okay that he did it. And anyways, Democrats did something worse. This is like the thing that they rinse and repeat every single time, where if I posted in 2024, the beginning of the year, Trump is going to call for the death and the hanging of Alyssa Slotkin and Mark Kelly. Trump is going to threaten to bomb desalination plants in Iran and send them to the Stone Age. He's going to try to put Jerome Powell in jail and Letitia James in jail. All of those MAGA people would have left a comment saying that I have Trump derangement syndrome and Trump would never do that. And now he did it and they defend it. So.
Yeah, and speaking to that as well, that is insane. Like, and there are people that are actually like defending like the even though like they're saying like I don't necessarily think it breached like sedition, or I don't think it breached like encouraging insubordination, right? People will still say, I get why he might have thought it, even though and that's why we have a grand jury to throw it out. And it's like nothing, like he had already been flagged for the unlawful deployment of the Guard in Los Angeles before 2 months prior to them doing that.
Something people need to read, this is a good topic you brought up, is the decision in Oregon from, what's her name, Judge Immerget, who was a Trump-appointed federal judge who struck down his National Guard deployment in Oregon. And if you read her decision, it is unreal. She literally brings up the government's quote-unquote evidence for federalizing the National Guard. One of the quote-unquote radical left attacks was that someone shined a flashlight in the eyes of an ICE officer. And they said, this is so extreme, it's so dangerous, we need to have the feds. Your live is flagged for civic and election. Okay, great. They're saying that we need to send in the National Guard under the command of the president because someone who works for ICE had a flashlight shined in their eyes. And you even saw that I think the Federal Bureau of Prisons guy, the federal guy who was in charge of that detention center in Oregon, he was speaking to local police and he told them, everything's good here, we don't need your help. And then you turn on TV, and after the federal government guy is saying we don't need help, everything's peaceful, Trump is coming and saying the radical left is doing a terror attack on this detention facility and they're trying to like kill all these officers. It is so crazy how even a Trump-appointed judge is like, this is such a blatant fucking lie, you're making this up. And it got like no media attention at all.
No, you know the crazy thing about that too, the way the media is structured, right? So many people talk about, oh, liberals have Hollywood, liberals have the culture, right? There might be some truth to like culture and certain things, like the left, but like, like for example, right, when Biden had like the worst debate performance, right, like right, the whole everything, social media, New York Times, right? Whereas when Trump does things wrong, it's like it's only going to be in like tightly like liberal spaces, certain stuff, and the mainstream media with all of his lawsuits might not even talk about it, but like you don't even catch it, but you'll never see it on Fox News, you'll never see it on like right-wing spaces, right? It won't, whereas like certain people on the left, like it'll still like kind of get into their spaces when the Dems screw up, and it'll be on all these right-wing spaces. It's just everywhere.
This is one thing that I'll give credit to Destiny Epstein to make this point, that the entire political media ecosystem is just like the incentives are lined up for everyone to shit on the Democrats. The Democrats shit on the Democrats, MAGA shits on the Democrats, the independents shit on the Democrats, and it's like, I criticize Democrats a lot because I want them to be better, but it does get to a point where it seems like, okay, where is the energy that everyone had for Joe Biden after the debate when Trump is literally, his brain is melting and he's acting like a terrorist on the press conference stage and no one seems to care.
Yeah. I just it's crazy.
Yep.
What is like, because sometimes I feel like I go into these debates and I'll read stuff and I'll have like knowledge, but I might not always have my computer like in front of me, and I feel like I need to more.
Yeah.
What is your advice like going into, because people are always like, any little statement you make as like a Democrat, as someone on the left, right? Mm-hmm. Like they make statements a lot more loosely, and then it's your job to prove them wrong. It's not their job to prove it right. But like as a Dem and as a liberal, it's always going to be my job to like prove it, because they can just do. What's your advice like for
this
me?
Is a
forward?
method I've arrived at recently. You have to also make crazy statements very loosely, make crazy statements. Like for example, one thing that I've started saying, I'm going to say it more because it's going to trigger MAGA, is that the Trump administration basically acts as a terrorist organization. They use violence and threats of fear against civilian populations to get political concessions. You saw Pam Bondi was making demands about voter records to Tim Walz right after Alex Preddy was shot. You see Trump today in his press conference, they asked him, would you rule out striking hospitals and schools? And Trump says, I'm not going to tell you that. Like this is terrorism. And it's like one of those things where your instinct might be to say, I'm not going to use the terrorism word against Trump because they're going to ask me, how dare you say that? But remember, these people called Alex Preddy a terrorist. They called Renee Good a terrorist. They throw the terrorist label around so loosely. And it's like, okay, if we're throwing this label around, let's use it accurately. And now I'm going to call you a terrorist when I talk to you. And then you're forcing them to engage with it because they're going to say, how dare you call him a terrorist? And then you tell them, I'll tell you how dare I call him a terrorist. And then you bring in all these civil rights violations and all the authoritarianism.
No,
so I think we have to shift to a much more offensive thing where it's like, I'm not going to sit here and defend Biden's border policy. I'm going to make you tell me why Trump's not a terrorist, because I think he is.
Yeah. And so like after I graduated high school, right, in 2014, I only took so many classes in college. I kind of like just like now like read stuff on my phone and on the computer. Would you say like to like have like, I guess, memory of like statistics and stuff? Would you recommend like I should like quiz myself and like try to like practice things
to some extent? I think more than statistics, it's important to know processes. Like it's important to know, how does our immigration system work? When these people are labeled illegal immigrants, I'm less concerned about the numbers and more concerned about, wait a second, you guys are calling someone an illegal immigrant. Who is this person? Someone who came to a United States port of entry and filled out all the paperwork to seek asylum and passed a credible fear interview and is waiting for their court date. This is someone who is like literally following all the rules. Why are you calling them an illegal, right? Like that to me is more important than how many illegals came in. The first question is, what do you mean by illegal, right? I think a lot of times we let them get away with the framing when we have to take issue with that from the get-go.
Yeah, and I'll even see this, right. I can understand from like the collective right standpoint of like, yeah, like we shouldn't encourage people that like, come across or evade border, but like I'm saying, like not gonna put like all my information out there, but just having met people in my lifetime that might have like just came in right undetected, right, but you still see that like they found some way to obtain tax identification, right, they found some way to get a job, right, they're not committing harm to people, right? It's like I still think there should be like a way that those people can also obtain a legal status in this country. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's like it's just that, like when you look at like countries like Guatemala, right? Like because I know people here from Guatemala, right? Like we essentially overthrew their democratically elected government in, I think, 1953, I want to say. Jacob Arbenz, right, overthrew their government. And then afterwards, for the next like 36 years, from like 1960 to 1996, they had like civil war, like Guatemala, you know what I mean? So it's like when people wonder, oh, why is Guatemala so poor? I'm not saying we deserve like all the blame for it, but it definitely, like the president who was nationalizing their fruit company, right? Like he was on his way out, even if like the next guy comes in. So it would be way better to just let the next guy come in and undo what he did versus like completely just creating this delegitimate admin that then creates the guerrilla side of the left that want to fight back.
And this is a big thing in Iran as well. The reason there's so much anti-American, anti-Western sentiment in Iran is because we did kind of go in and topple one of their world leaders for wanting to nationalize the oil. And it turns out when you constantly antagonize other people, you create the demand for terrorism and illegal immigration, right? If you create unlivable conditions in South and Central America, you create a demand for people to come here seeking a better life. And if you traumatize people in the Middle East, they're going to want revenge. So I think it is like a point Democrats need to make more as well.
Yeah, and I think because the crazy thing, right, with like Mossadegh, right, like they would have figured it out one way or another, even if he was trying to like dissolve the parliament, right, even if he was losing stuff, right, even if there were complications, right, he generally was still viewed as somewhat of a popular leader, and it wasn't like,
and I believe he was he elected, or am I tripping? I feel like he was elected.
I don't know if he was elected or if he was chosen through the parliament. I think he was like a prime minister, I want to say.
Sure, yeah, but I think he was like, there was some kind of democratic process. He wasn't like a complete just came out of nowhere type of dictator.
Yeah, he was, and essentially what was happening is that once he made the big push to nationalize everything, Britain and the U.S. pushed all the embargoes, and then everything inflated. And he was given emergency powers from the parliament, but then he kept, I think, like extending them, and then him and the Shah kind of got into beef. Like there was like a weird kind of quasi constitutional crisis that was coming in there, but it wasn't like people want to always compare it to like, oh, well, that's how you're gonna get communism, that's how you're gonna get socialism, and it's like when we look at like what happened in like Russia with like Lenin and Stalin, like people can't just attach that to every other country that might have some government. Like there was no indicators, right, that like there was going to be some massive, and the craziest thing is that what ended up happening after we overthrew them was that they did end up having the revolution, 20 something years later. So,
and the Shah is a big thing too. Like the Shah was a pretty brutal, horrible ruler who had like secret police and stuff. So it's like when people in Iran, their entire view of the West and America is like, oh yeah, these guys come in and fuck our shit up, and then they just leave, and then they try to kill us. Like that's probably not a great PR strategy if you want to avoid terrorism and have like a more stable foreign policy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had one debate, and I don't know what your opinion is on this. I was arguing with one guy, and so I thought there were 5 articles in the Constitution, right? I didn't know there were 7, and I didn't know the total amendments, but I was able to name like specific amendments. I might have like gotten the 4th and the 5th like backwards.
Sure.
And like basically because of that, right, from the jump, they just said nothing now. I can't come at any political topic from a logical standpoint. Everything that I'm going to approach is emotional now. Like that's what they said to me. Like, what is your take on that? Like,
I mean, the thing is, I would ask them like, okay, what is the relevance to this conversation of how many articles are in the Constitution? Like, what does that have to do with the actual point we're discussing? Like, unless you are debating how many articles are in the Constitution, I don't know why that would matter, whether you happen to remember every single amendment or how many amendments there are, especially because it's like, okay, you can be correct about how many amendments there are, but do you actually support the Constitution? Like, aren't you voting for the guy who has explicitly said it should be terminated? Because that seems like a much bigger issue than forgetting how many articles there are.
It's
always the framing. They always fuck up the framing, and then if you accept the framing, then you've accepted their like all of their implicit traps.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's like I need to find a way to get out of it. I've been in some of the in a lot of these TikTok spaces I go into. It's almost like I'm either in a space that's like heavily skewed liberal, and then whenever I'm there, we can't get enough conservatives to where I find it as like an advantageous challenge, and I get bored. But then when I go into like certain conservative spaces where there is like that advantageous challenge, I find myself being so isolated, and it can be a little. It can be overwhelming, you know what I mean? It can like.
No, yeah, it definitely can, and I think like a big thing. I mean, this is also something you learn from experience doing debates. Is like I think the most important thing to do in a debate is maintain your frame. Like, don't occupy the frame the other person is setting. Like they will try to set the context of what you're talking about and how you're talking, and even the body language and the tone and tenor of the debate. And it's like I think very important to like stick to your guns on how you want to talk about things and what you want to emphasize, because especially when you're outnumbered, they're really good at trying to just like change the topic or change the framing or make it about something else. Like you can ask them, what about Trump's authoritarianism? And 5 minutes later, they're asking you how many amendments are in the Constitution. So it's like they're always very bad faith with this shit.
Yeah, it was crazy because they brought that up because I said I voted against Trump because of like what, you know, his immigration policy. And I said specifically one of the biggest reasons was, you know, him trying to overturn the results of the election. And then that's where they went into, well, how many amendments are in the Constitution and how many articles there are. And I got like really frustrated. And then they just like booted me from the chat. Like it was pretty bad.
That's usually how it goes. Yeah, they just rage quit because they usually have nothing of substance to contribute.
Yeah, and then I might have gotten mad as well, but yeah, man, I definitely look forward to like just continuing to like watch you, man. Like, you know,
Thank
like
you.
I like your content, you know, definitely. So
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you for watching.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or you got to go, or?
I'm trying to think. Probably not. I mean, actually, back on your initial thing about Destiny and stuff, I was thinking recently. One thing I would be willing to talk to him about is maybe debating is Gaza a genocide? Because I believe he doesn't think it's a genocide, and that's maybe a conversation I'd be willing to have with him. Because one thing I disagree with him on is he seems to think it's like silly when people are focused on Gaza and they want like a Democratic nominee who's going to take a strong stance on Israel. But I totally understand why people are upset about Gaza, and I think it's like it's important to pay attention to those concerns because they point to something real. And I feel like he definitely. I agree with a lot of his political message, but that's one place where I think he's just like completely off base. But yeah.
No, yeah, and I mean, I think, like, I'll say this, right? Like, I don't like I kind of get caught because I feel like I'm caught in between like both of you guys on that issue, even like Mehdi Hasan, because like I like Mehdi Hasan a lot, and I think he makes really good arguments on it. And then I've watched Destiny argue the other side, and I think he makes good points. But it's like it's one of those things where it's like it wouldn't necessarily like stop me from voting. I know that's what cost
I
it.
agree. Yeah.
And it sucks though, because I feel like even though people will say it's only the really, really far left Dems that wouldn't do it, I'm also seeing from some of these spaces that I've gone into more like moderate Dems that now either won't vote or for Democrats, or they'll vote like for Rubio or a Republican in the next election because they think when Biden, right, literally withheld the bombs from going to Israel for Rafah, right? They'll say that I guess Israeli hostages died because of that. I don't know if you could fact check me on that, but they'll say like that was Biden betraying Israel, and then you have people on the other side calling him genocide.
He was too weak on Israel. Yeah, there is a bit of catch-22 there. I think like the criticism of Biden was legitimate when it came to Israel, but then some people took that to the level of acting like he was even close to as bad as Trump. Like an argument I used to make a lot in 2024 is like, I think that Biden has really mishandled Gaza, but if you think Trump is going to be better, you're fucking crazy. Like Biden is a million billion times better than Trump, and so is Kamala on these issues. And they're also more malleable. Like you can push the Democrats. I mean, you saw recently that more than half of Senate Democrats voted to cut off offensive weapons to Israel. Now, some might say, oh, that's not far enough. But if you go back to 2012, I don't think you could imagine over half of Senate Democrats voting to cut off weapons to Israel. So if you apply pressure, especially in primaries, you can move the party in the right direction. The Republicans are never going to move on that issue. So I'm of the mind if I think it makes sense to say that I want a nominee in the primary who is going to be very tough on Israel and more pro-Palestine. But if someone who's not like that wins the primary, I'm still going to support them in the general election because the alternative is Republican. So yeah, I think both those can be held at the same time.
No, I 100% agree with that take. And to your point about how like Trump was going to be so much worse, that's I kept trying to like tell people that too as well. I kept trying to say like literally, if you look at Obama's presidency and the kind of drone warfare and the bombs that he engaged in, I'm like, Trump only escalated that during his presidency. Biden actually scaled a lot of that back. Like he scaled back like the situation in Saudi Arabia and Yemen. He scaled back like in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
right.
I think the issue with Biden wasn't that he was necessarily pro what Netanyahu was doing. I think he was just too weak. Like he wasn't tough enough on Netanyahu, and I think he let Israel Netanyahu kind of get the best of him in a few situations where he should have been willing to take a little bit more of a risk and kind of take a stronger stance against them. So even with Biden, it's like his Middle East policy, I think the issues that I have with it was more so like weakness or like lack of strategy. Whereas with Trump, it's like this guy is like actively malicious, talking about we're going to bomb desalination plants, we're going to bomb power plants, and I'm not going to rule out bombing school. I mean, people talk about genocide. I mean, Trump has been using pretty genocidal language about Iran, talking about these people have low IQ. We have to send them back to the Stone Age and bomb their water plants. It's like, I don't know how anyone could have ever argued that it was a difficult choice in 2024, even if Gaza is your number one issue.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. So my question I'd ask, like, what do you think, right? Like, because I'm not trying to say like October 7th is the be all end all for like what Israel did afterwards, but what I'm saying, how should have Israel responded differently after October 7th?
I think they should have probably tried to make targeted attacks on senior Hamas leadership and people maybe in Qatar who were helping funneling resources or money towards that, which they clearly, if they want to, can be very precise with fucking what did they do with, was it like walkie-talkies or radio or some shit with the bombs in them, or they send in like very precise drones and they can just blow up one room and leave the rest standing. So I think that if they were smart, what they would have done is target the top leadership who were involved in funding and facilitating and planning. But going in and making Gaza unlivable was, even if you don't care about the morality of it, it's just stupid because now everyone hates you way more everywhere. Like Israel's favorability is way lower than it was. And it's like for good reason, because when people see these images of what's happening, and my issue here is this, I don't think it's just like, oh, Israel, they happen to have some civilian casualties. It seems like they very intentionally created tough situations in Gaza because they wanted people to suffer. One example of this that I never ever see discussed, and maybe it's because not enough Western outlets have confirmed it, even though there's video of it, is they would send drones with speakers attached to them to these refugee camps where people are in tents, and the speaker on the drone will play audio of a crying woman or a screaming baby. And then when people are drawn out of the tent to investigate the sound, they're shot with the drone, like vertically, top down, straight like this. And if you watch Aziz Rahman, who is a doctor who went to Gaza, the stories he told, it's like, this is not like, oops, we killed a civilian. This is like, no, I think this is intentional genocide, actually. The thing they did with the food where, for example, you had the areas where there'd be these massive shipments of food right by the border, and then what's supposed to happen is the UN food trucks pick up the food, they drive, and they take the food to these quote-unquote safe areas. But then what would happen is, initially, the Gaza police was defending these UN food trucks. Then Israel kills all the Gaza police, and now there's no one left defending the trucks, and then Israel gives weapons and funding to militia groups in Gaza, like the Popular Forces, and then those militia groups take the guns given to them by Israel, and then they go raid the UN food trucks and steal all the food because they're no longer protected because Israel killed the protectors. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff they do where it's like, oh, you're trying to make these people suffer, and you're trying to manufacture a crisis here, which I think if you look at how Netanyahu talks, he's very clearly a malicious bad faith actor who thinks that like the Palestinians existing is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that he has committed a lot of crimes even before the conflict started, and then that's the thing. Some of the points, right, where they would hit like certain like food trucks. Mm-hmm. Like you said, like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty indefensible. I know people always resort to like the arguments of, well, Hamas just builds tunnels or they force them to live in these areas. And I mean, there might be some truth to that. But
here's the thing, even there's an argument all the time where it's like, okay, did you know that Israel, first of all, they drop leaflets and they warn people of strikes, and Hamas is in a tunnel, so they have to get the buildings. But the logic of that has never made sense to me, because if Israel is dropping flyers, hey, we're about to bomb this area, then like Hamas would also see those flyers and Hamas would also escape. And if anything, Hamas would leave civilians behind, and then Hamas would be the only one leaving. So it's like you can't have it both ways. Either Israel is doing surprise attacks or they're giving warnings, and either which way, civilians are facing the brunt of the force.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I think
I think most people agree on this issue. There's so many issues where I think the division is like manufactured by media and politicians. I think most people agree on this, that no civilian should be dying, period, pretty much anywhere, and anytime we can minimize that, we should. The Palestinian people deserve statehood. Until they get a state, this is never going to end. And people in Israel who've committed war crimes should be held accountable for the war crimes. And we need to focus on rebuilding Gaza and holding Israelis accountable, and also holding Hamas accountable. That's fine, but it's like there's a way to do that, and genocide is not the way to do that.
Do you think two-state solution, is that what you would advocate for, or would you think one state or two-state?
I think in a perfect world, one state would be awesome. I don't know how practically possible a one-state solution is, so I think you probably have to start with some kind of two-state solution.
Yeah.
And then even there, it's a question of, okay, Israel's going to say, we don't want them to have a military because they're going to attack us, but then Palestine's going to say, we're not actually a sovereign state if we have no defense. So there's things that have to be ironed out there that are pretty complicated, but that seems like such a far cry from what's happening now, where it's like they're...
I know. How do we even get to that, right?
Expanding in the West Bank, and they're annexing more territory, and all the crazy far-right people are saying crazy far-right things, and there's no one to really stop them. And it's not like Trump's going to tell them to calm down, so...
It is crazy too. Like I've gone into some of these like spaces, right, where like cause Destiny doesn't sound the way some of these people do, right? I've gone into some of these spaces, and some of these
definitely not one of these like bloodthirsty Zionist types. I agree with that.
Because some of the people on the right, like some people that are like Zionists and that like literally have said like I hope they drop more tomorrow, like what I'm saying, like I hope, like, and it's like,
and you can look at the approval
wow.
polls in Israel, and it's like not many people in Israel think this is like really tragic or bad. I mean, most of them either support it or think it should go farther. And the reality ultimately is like I think like one thing that also people miss when they defend Israel a lot is like it's very clear that there's a massive segment of the Israeli population and the Israeli government who believes that Palestinians existing is an existential threat to us, and we need to just destroy their identity, destroy their land, take away all their hope, crush everything. I don't think they like the idea of a two-state solution, because in their mind, as long as the Palestinians exist, there's like some kind of risk there, which is why they want to make Gaza basically a dead zone and take as much of the West Bank as possible, and then just make Egypt and Jordan deal with all the refugees pretty much.
Yeah, it does seem like we're kind of pushing in that direction. What do you think? Like, they like because they like I know they actually helped Hamas get into power, crazily enough.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Like, when they always try to use like some of these excuses, though, that like now there is this massive growing sentiment of Israelis that are against Gaza, but then like they'll say there's always been like propaganda as well, though, in Gaza and the West Bank to always like I guess hate Jewish people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Like, listen, ultimately, like there's going to be people on both sides who have seen, like people that were around for the intifadas have maybe seen people that they know and love who were like blown up in some kind of suicide bombing. And then there's going to be people in Gaza who like, they're like, all they've ever seen from Israel is like genocide and war crimes. And it's like, to some extent, it's like, you need to, the only way to move past this is say that everyone who committed a war crime, regardless of which side they are on, is going to face punishment commensurate with the severity of their war crime. Until people feel like there's been justice, everyone has like very legitimate grievances. And when people have legitimate grievances, they're not thinking straight about what's fair and what's ethical. They see red, they want blood. And that's not a good state to be in.
No, I mean you're definitely like really good faith on this issue. I feel like I wish that's why I wish Kamala would have gotten elected, because as much as so many people said it doesn't matter, right? Even people like will like misleading like I debated this one guy. He's like super left, like communist. Like he's even like communist to the point where he likes like Russia. He's on like WPW. When he would say things like Kamala said like Trump didn't stand by Israel, I'd read into these claims later on. and I would see that she didn't mean that like she was going to be hawkish on Iran or against Gaza. What she meant was that that like by what he did with Soleimani, right, by what he did ripping up the JCPOA, that he didn't stand by Israel, and that she was going to support negotiations and try to get like some type of
people
ceasefire.
miss this. It's like Kamala Harris is from the same political party as Barack Obama, who was the guy who implemented the JCPOA, and Obama got a lot of shit. I'm pretty sure the first person Obama called after getting sworn in 2009 was the president of like the PLO or something. Like Obama was given a lot of shit for like, oh, you abstained in these UN votes. So like the issue I've always had with the Democrats is like, okay, there are these little inklings and like little seeds where sometimes like, oh, Obama did kind of a decent thing here or there with the Iran deal or this or that, or Biden withdrawing from Afghanistan. And it's like, the way you improve that is by pushing them in the right direction, not by saying they're just as bad as Republicans. It's never made sense to me.
Yeah, no, and it's frustrating because they'll say it's not good enough, and then simultaneously, while they're not saying it's good enough, people on the right will like tear apart the JCPOA. Netanyahu tore it apart with his rhetoric and how bad it was.
The reality is this: in the real world, there's almost never good enough. There's either better, the same, or worse. Those are the options, and usually Democrats are better and Republicans are worse.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's crazy. So many Republicans, like so many people that I talk to, right? Like good faith, even some of them Jewish American people that are supportive of this war. They think it's just gonna all work out perfectly, right? That we're gonna take down the regime and it's gonna be great. And I just feel like the regime's gonna survive either way. Like even if there is some world where the regime was toppled and then like they could like institute some type of real democracy, that sounds great. But I just don't even think it's possible.
I'm more worried if the regime collapses because we've seen what happens when there's a massive power vacuum like this. Like I could very much foresee a situation where, let's say they do completely crush the regime and any kind of central power, and then you see a bunch of factions of the IRGC forming militia groups in different regions who are basically, now you have like the Iranian version of ISIS rising up and like all these different skirmishes over territory. And the people that are suffering, that have been suffering the whole time are the civilians there who are, their own government's killing them, the U.S. is killing them.
So you and I'm actually just giving you these arguments not because necessarily I agree with it, because
Sure.
I'm just gonna steal some people's opinions. So people will say things like, right, well, the thing with Iraq with the power vacuum was because it was Iran that did the power vacuum. So people will say that like essentially with Iran, right, if you topple the regime, you're essentially finally getting the head off the snake, and it would be very hard at that point for another power vacuum.
Sure. So my understanding is like when Saddam Hussein was in charge, Shias felt like a very persecuted minority in Iraq, and then after the U.S. went and toppled him, Iran was like low-key like, oh, this is kind of lit, like we now have more influence in Iraq, and you saw like a lot of sectarian warfare rising up where the Iraqi Shias were sort of like standing up more, and then there was a backlash from the Sunnis. And my worry is, okay, let's say you collapse the Shia hegemony in Iran and you see a breakdown of like the Ayatollahs and stuff, then like Saudi Arabia is a big part in the rise of certain extremist groups. I mean, they were the ones who were funding these like madrasas where the ISI was funneling money during when the Soviets were invading, and the U.S. was funneling money through Pakistan to a lot of these groups that ended up becoming terrorist groups. And what I see happening is, okay, if you see a collapse of the government of Iran, the Shia hegemony of Iran, then I feel like you see actors like Saudi Arabia and Israel trying to meddle by picking their favorite group in Iran and funneling them weapons, and then that group becomes an offshoot of something else. It's very hard to control these types of power vacuums, and I could very easily, I mean, what's been happening as far as I can tell is like a lot of the Middle East conflict has been the result of the Saudi Arabia versus Iran proxy war, with Israel and the United States getting involved here and there. And if you just collapse Iran, I have a very hard time seeing how that doesn't become 10 different militia groups, each backed by a different Sunni country, and then maybe some Shia countries as well, or like offshoots of the Houthis or whoever, who are now like, this is free reign for us.
Wow, and you think because I know the Saudis, right? You probably know a little bit more about this than me. I know the Saudis did funnel a lot of money into like T groups, right? Like
They funded these like madrasas, which were basically radicalizing people, and the entire reason that you had like basically when the Soviets were invading Afghanistan, and you had the U.S. was basically funneling money and weapons to Pakistan, and then Pakistan was like working in conjunction with Saudi Arabia, I think, to pick which groups are going to get these weapons, and their logic was the more religious types are better because they're easier to control through religion. But then what they miss is they're less pragmatic, and then once the war is over, they're not just going to dissipate. Now you have a bunch of very ideological people who have a lot of weapons, and I don't see, it seems like the West is just not learning any lessons about how things work in the Middle East, like different sects and like tribes and regions who have all these centuries old conflicts, and then all the different national interests, where the second the Iranian government collapsed, Saudi Arabia is like salivating to interfere as much as possible. And it's like, do I trust them to go into a power vacuum? I don't know.
Do you think do you think the US and Israel would be able to restrain Saudi Arabia from doing that? Or do you actually think like it would play more to Israel's advantage to have chaos and like Saudi Arabia meddling and trying to create? Because I know like right now, like
the latter for sure, because if there's a bunch of non-state actors who are running around doing attacks, Israel can just do the Gaza thing and say, well, we have to bomb the fuck out of Iran or else they're going to attack us or whatever. Like it's an easy foil for them to have a bunch of terror groups running around.
So you could actually see them like, cause a lot of the diaspora Iranians, right? Like they're happy like about it, like what's going on. I mean, I don't know about all of them, but I've seen like that some of them are.
The IRGC and the Ayatollah are objectively like horrible. I think that is obviously true. Yeah. But the same could be said about Saddam. So it's like, I don't know that any level of depravity from a government could justify the power vacuum that comes afterwards. Like in hindsight, I really don't think it makes sense that we toppled Saddam as bad as he was. And I think the U.S. needs to do a massive, and this is, I mean, I'm kind of armchair quarterbacking here, or like, sitting in my room talking about foreign policies if I'm an expert, but I think the U.S. needs to do a massive, massive pivot in the Middle East away from Israel towards some kind of like pan-Arabism alliance. I think like a lot of the reason Iran has so much like political cachet and they have all these proxy groups is because like when the first Ayatollah rose up, he was taking advantage of and capitalizing on a very real sentiment amongst the Middle East, where it's like, okay, the West keeps coming in and like taking our oil and like toppling our leaders, and they don't give a fuck about us or like what we want to do. And it's like these things compound over time. Same thing why I'm so worried with Gaza is like not just that I think it's a horrible genocide, but now you've created a population of hundreds of thousands, millions of people who everyone knows someone who was blown up and exploded. And like that kind of intergenerational trauma, it does things to a civilization you can't even quantify how bad it is. And it's like if the US's only interaction with the Middle East is hard power, no shit, they're going to hate us. It's like at a certain point, you don't justify it, but you kind of understand why these things happen. And I think it would be very, very advantageous to say, a new president would have to do this and openly say, you know what, our Middle East policy has been bad. I'm doing a complete pivot towards, I want unity between the Shias and Sunnis, and I want to work with them, and we're going to work with Saudi Arabia and Iran and try to make them both do well, whatever. And I think it doesn't make sense to me that, I think everyone understands and agrees, even Zionist people, that Israel is the pariah of the Middle East. Every Shia, Sunni, all of them agree, fuck Israel, whether or not they agree with each other. And it's like, I've never understood the logic of aligning yourself with the country that everyone else hates. And then our logic is, well, Israel gives us intelligence on those countries. Yeah, but we need intelligence on them so much because they fucking hate us because we're out with Israel. So it's like, I've never understood that, honestly. I think we need to do a massive pivot there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I kind of understand where you're coming from. Like if like in a hypothetical where that happens, right, where the regime topples and then Saudi try to do like a power vacuum, do you think that would create problems though between the US, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, or it would be like almost like staged kind of like controlled warfare?
It depends, because I mean, whether it creates issues between Israel and the United States depends on how the U.S. leader reacts to this happening and what kind of relationship they want to have with Israel. So I think that's pretty up in the air. The worry that I have is that there are decisions that would be made by Israel and Saudi Arabia that would be very short-term focused. I mean, even now, maybe I've missed it. I don't think Israel has really articulated, okay, after you topple the Iranian regime, what do you envision would come next there? And it's always something very vague about, oh, the people and democracy. And it's like, this is actually very, building a nation state and building legitimacy is extremely, extremely difficult. And this idea we can just go in and topple them when there's all these sectarian conflict and all these generations of trauma, the thing that I'm worried about is not even specifically, oh, Israel's going to do this, the U.S., Saudi. It's that there are so many variables at play. It's like a pressure cooker, and something is bound to happen, right? There's like a million things that could go wrong, and all that has to happen is one of them goes wrong, and now it's like a whole different can of worms is open. So I think there's like a big... We need to shift towards more long-term thinking. I feel like the time horizons we think on sometimes with foreign policy is like what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years versus the next like 3-4 decades.
Do you think even like Israel kind of like as like possibly like, you said like a pariah state, like, do you think like, is there any justification on their part for maybe sometimes feeling like they are kind of isolated against all these other countries, or do you think they brought it upon themselves?
Justification is different than reason. So Israel has reasons for acting the way it acts, the same way that Hamas has reasons for acting the way it acts. So I can, on the one hand, analyze like what is just the cause and effect. If like, okay, if the Israeli population is seeing this kind of media, and then they saw the intifadas and they've seen this kind of propaganda, then obviously they're going to feel this way. Same goes for people that, okay, if they've grown up in Gaza and all they've ever known is like death and destruction, they're going to join Hamas. So I can understand why Israel does the things it does and why Hamas does the things it does. But then there's a different question between, do I understand why they do it? And then is it justified? And I think the role of a country like the United States is to go in and say, listen, you have whatever grievances, but we have to actually fix this. Because if the rest of time is people litigating their grievances, everyone's going to be killing each other for the next 3 centuries. And that's just not tenable. So someone has to step in and say, listen, Israel, you guys might feel aggrieved. You guys got the better end of the deal here. You've actually had a nation state with a government with international cooperation and legitimacy. And these guys have been living in fucking rubble and like, being treated as second-class citizens, having no actual, someone who grows up in Gaza is never thinking, I could be upper middle class one day and have a good job and start a company. That's just not even available to them because their infrastructure is horrible. They have no proper sovereignty, right? They have no proper world standing. And like, if Israel wants to complain and cry about certain stuff, it's like, okay, you can do that, but like you guys got the better end of the deal here. And like, if anyone has the right to complain and cry, it's the Palestinians, not you guys, because you guys have been, you've kind of gotten off scot-free for a lot of shit, and they don't.
Yeah, I can see where you'd come from on that too. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I hope. That would just seem if Saudi Arabia, right? Because if Saudi Arabia really started doing that, and the U.S. just turned like a blind eye to it, right? That created like more warfare. I don't know. I mean,
even if the U.S. didn't turn a blind eye and they were like, "Oh, we're going to facilitate this," it's like, I think it's nation building is like not even. It's very difficult. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's especially in the Middle East. Western powers trying to do nation building in the Middle East, it seems like it never works. I've never seen it work well.
Do you think that would because I feel like right now the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Israel are somewhat unified on this. Do you think though that like there could be like after the regime like hypothetically topples, do you think it could create like almost like a divide between Israel and Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely, because here's the thing: a lot of these Gulf countries they're allied more or less with Israel, but their public-facing stance to their people has to be, oh, we hate Israel and fuck it, the Zionists and all that stuff, because the population of Saudi Arabia and all these countries, they still hate Israel very much. So they can work with them behind the scenes and normalize trade relations and all this stuff, but if they come out and say, oh, we love Israel, we're going to stand with them, they're going to have a domestic unrest on their hands. So they're going to have to do something. Crazy. Yeah.
What So I'm curious, right? Because like before all this started, right? Because I'm kind of shifting topics, but I do appreciate this. Before all this started, right? all we were talking about was like the ICE stuff, dude. Like the ICE stuff was like insane. Like, you know, the operation in Minnesota, because of like the shutdown and all the stuff with TSA and everything, has the ICE stuff actually like slowed down, or are we just not hearing about it as much?
It's a bit of both. So there's still a lot of horrible stuff happening, especially at detention centers. People are being mistreated horribly. I mean, being fed food with maggots and fungus in it, and people are not being given any due process, able to call a lawyer. With that said, my understanding is that after, I think this was maybe a month or two ago, that Trump did meet with his DHS people, and he was like, I want you guys to stop doing so much mass deportation and start focusing more on criminal deportation. With that being said, there's still a lot of abuses happening, but I think purely in terms of scale and numbers, it does seem to have gone down marginally, but it's like, even if one person is being abused in this way, it's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. So it does seem like after Minnesota, there was some kind of recalibration where they backtracked a little bit verbally, and it seems like the directives and prioritization have changed a little bit to let's focus on criminals. But with that being said, they're still harassing people. I mean, because the thing is, it's one thing, what is the directive Trump is giving? The second thing is, what types of dark, twisted people are joining ICE right now? Who's like, hell yeah, I want to join ICE right now? People that are joining ICE right now, and there's articles on, they're recruiting Trump supporters, they're recruiting super Second Amendment people, super far-right people. So it's like, even if Trump behind the scenes is like, okay, we need to chill out a little bit, the actual agents on the ground are still, in many cases, deranged, sociopathic, like racist, violent people. So only so much that can go down, even if he gives the order.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And like, what is, because I get into all these arguments with people about this stuff. They always try to say like due process, and they try to argue that they don't get due process, or what is the type of process. Like, from what I've seen, right, like if an immigrant is arrested, right, like whether they entered the country illegally or not, like they are supposed to have some, especially if they've been here for X amount of time, or if they're not apprehended like right at the border, or like within just a couple weeks, I think, or something like that. Like, I think it's like they are supposed to be able to still go before an immigration.
By the way, even if you're apprehended right at the border, if you seek a credible fear interview, you still have to get one, and if you pass it, you still have to get your court date. So I've said this before. Even if someone was an undocumented serial killer, mass rapist, terrorist, they would still get like the whole point of due process is everyone gets it. If you're facing the jurisdiction and the power of the United States government, then before the government enacts power upon you, some kind of process is due to you. It's not always a court case. It could be just checking a record or something. But the point there being that there has to be some kind of process that is acting as a buffer between you and the government, regardless of who you are.
Yeah, and the saddest part about that is like you just used the most extreme example, and that they would still get the process. And the crazy thing is, when you hear about so many of these people that are getting snatched up and not getting any type of process,
they're just normal
none
people.
of them. Yeah, I mean, what happened with El Salvador was just disgraceful. I mean, what happened with, I actually live in Maryland, so I live in the state that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is from. Like, I don't personally know him, but just like viewing that whole thing, and then when the New Republic article came out about how like a veteran within the Department of Justice literally like said that they like from the jump, like it was a slander campaign from the jump to label this guy a gang member without any credible evidence.
They defied the Supreme Court for like 2 months. People don't even talk about that. He literally defied. People act like, oh, well, he complied eventually. That's not how compliance works. Like, he was given a deadline, he was told to do something, and they dragged their feet, and it was just never covered again. We had a straight up president defying the Supreme Court and only bringing Garcia back to indict him, not to follow the court. And the craziest story there, it was not Garcia, it was this guy named Luis Munoz Pinto, who has the most tragic story. This was a young guy who came to a port of entry. I think he wanted to seek education in the US. He sought asylum. He filled out the paperwork, followed every single rule and regulation, and then as he's at the facility, he's told, you look suspicious, and he's sent to fucking CCOT. He had no criminal record, and he followed every single rule to seek asylum. That's so insane to me, that he was just, his head was shaved, he was shackled and sent to CCOT. That to me is like unreal.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is insane. And even with Kilmar, like too, what was so crazy about that is when they did finally bring it back and he was in Tennessee, right? He was actually almost like taking refuge in the Tennessee jail, right? Like the judge was gonna the judge was going to release him, but the whole, and this is a weird thing where I picked up on what Trump does, right? So what Trump will do is he'll bring Kilmar back. He'll indict him. He won't indict him because he actually intends to prosecute him. He indicts him because he creates this kind of plausibility of, oh, I'm trying to get a serious criminal, but even though I have the strongest law enforcement body in the entire country, it's the communist rogue judges that will prevent this guy from being prosecuted. So then he can justify, well, if the jail releases him, he's a communist activist judge, and now I have to do my job and send him back to CSOT. So Kilmar was almost like, I'm going to stay in this jail until this gets further litigated so that I don't get sent back to CSOT.
And they threatened him. They were like, oh, if you take a plea deal and you plead guilty, we're going to send you to a nice tropical country. But if you plead not guilty, we're going to deport you to fucking Uganda. You don't even speak the language. And it's like they play all these games where it's like when they indict someone, it's not even to get a conviction. It's to make them spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal defense and just make them super paranoid and make them go through all the process. And it's one thing for a James Comey to do that because he has massive resources. But if you're someone like Abrego Garcia, you're just a random guy, that's probably pretty fucking scary to, first of all, get sent to a fucking slave labor camp. And then you come back and you're being accused of human trafficking and they're calling you and threatening you on the phone. It's like, how much is one person going to fight the federal government alone?
Yeah, has he? So is he sending people to like the Congo or Uganda or something now?
Yeah,
has
they
he
have
actually
done that? I don't know if they've done that recently, but they definitely have done that to some people where they've sent them to like random like West African countries for no reason.
And ours, and not even all these people are like serious offenders either, right? Like a lot of these people that they've sent,
A lot
like,
of them
I mean,
just
that,
have sus tattoos, I guess.
that is, I mean, that's just insane, dude. I mean, like that,
I'm saying the word that needs to be used more often. I want to just spread this. It's terrorism. I think it's when you use fear tactics and violence to get people to capitulate. It is the definition of terrorism. And here's the thing: they love using that word so much. Fucking Biden's a terrorist. Obama's a terrorist. Garcia's a terrorist. Renee Good's a terrorist. And it's like, I feel like the left, that needs to be the word we use now. It's like these people are terrorists in charge of the country.
yeah, no, I don't disagree. I've called Trump a terrorist a lot for what happened on January 6th.
Yeah.
And the way like it's like the rhetorical games are so crazy too. Think about like when Biden, right, or when Trump was almost assassinated, right? Like Biden literally doubles his security, right? Says we need to tone the temperature down, and despite that, they still tried to say that the Democrats went after him. They were trying to take him out. But then like when Charlie Kirk goes, right, Trump instantly just goes towards it's the left, and at the same time, right? Sure, there were people that were celebrating what happened with Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, but like
any like
Twitter.
any prominent like Democratic figure were all like on Twitter saying we need to like tone the temperature down. And people will say, well, that's still not enough. But then it's like, oh, but it's okay when Trump literally is actively calling for the unaliving of all these people.
This is the big thing, yeah.
Yeah,
where they're like, oh, how dare you guys on the left do this? But when they say the left, it's not Obama or Clinton or anyone who's actually elected anywhere. It's just some random guy on Twitter. And then when we have the same criticism of them, it's not a random guy on Twitter. It's the president of the United States.
And the crazy thing too, right? Even with like what happened with Melissa Hortman, right? They'll say that they condemn it. They only condemned it when they thought that guy was a leftist. And then the moment they figured out that guy was like a radical evangelical, anti-trans, like anti-abortion rights, right? Like was literally planning on like going to an abortion clinic, had an entire manifesto of Democrats he was going to unalive. Well, now it's like, yeah, that we're just like if you bring it up, we care about it because you brought it up and you pinned us on it. But if you don't bring it up, we're just going to go back to talking about like Charlie Kirk and Trump's assassination attempts and BLM.
And here's the thing, to the extent that you've had people who have been violent at protests or whatever, or you've had like the attempt against Trump, imagine if the next Democratic president pardoned these people, because Trump pardoned the January 6th people. And it's like, just imagine if someone's like, I'm going to pardon Tyler Robinson when I become president. It's like they have no awareness of how unreal it is. For anyone on the right to ever complain about political violence makes no sense, because Trump doesn't just condone it, he pardons domestic terrorists who are convicted of sedition. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's crazy going to that as well, right? Like Trump will pardon all these people, and then people still will argue when you argue with them and debate them about January 6th. They'll still talk about like Nancy Pelosi or that he wanted a bunch of National Guard there. I've like read into those claims. So like Max Miller, who was a White House, because like of course the one guy, I don't know what his name, Ornato, right? Ornato gave us a stupid freaking testimony, and he was kind of like lying. But like when you listen to like Max Miller, senior advisor, and you hear about the conversation with Mark Meadows, right? They were talking to Bowser, the mayor of DC, D.C. about potentially having guards in the mall area. And then when Max Miller gave his testimony to the J6 committee, it was about like having the guard there because Trump wanted to march with them and they wanted the guard there to protect them from counter protesters and his people. However, there was never an official executive order. There was never a memo drafted about it, right? There was never like an official contact. And then Pelosi and McConnell can only like incentivize what the Capitol Police do, but they don't have full authority over them. And final point, I'm going to land my plane. Final point, right? Once the violence had started and initiated, right, the DOD was hesitant to send the guard because of the optics around it, right? All Trump had to do was make the phone call. And then at that point, there's no more optics because they don't want to be the people that disobeyed the president. But he didn't. Instead, him and Giuliani were watching on TV, making phone calls to lawmakers. Trump's daughter and staffers were all coming in like begging him to stop. And his own daughter testified at the J6 committee saying he wasn't doing anything to stop it. And she was begging him.
Yeah. And he called Kevin McCarthy and said, well, Kevin, I guess this is what happened. But it's like he was literally using it to his advantage. And it's like the main thing that bothers me here is like the whole Pelosi thing. Pelosi could have called the National Guard and all this stuff. Well, where was that logic when Trump federalized the DC police and National Guard and all this stuff to combat crime in DC? Does he think Mike Johnson could stop him from doing that? Because that's the logic of saying Pelosi was at the top of the chain of command. There makes no sense.
Yeah. And what would be your argument, right? Because I got in the most enraging argument with somebody about this and I couldn't wiggle my way out of it. This guy kept saying, Jack Smith's not a AUSA. He's not a U.S. appointed attorney. He's an inferior officer, but he was insulated with this extra layer of independent power.
I mean, the whole point of a special counsel is that the president isn't the one who, like, it's meant to separate the influence of the president from the investigation. And what Eileen Cannon was saying about Jack Smith being improperly appointed, I don't think there's any precedent for that in any other federal court anywhere. Like Mueller was also appointed by, what's his name? Was it Jeff Sessions, I think? Was that the first attorney general Trump had? But
I think it was Jeff Sessions or Rod Rosenstein. It was one of the two.
Yeah, one of those two. But point being, they're saying, special counsel, it's not properly appointed unless the president does it. If the president is appointing the special counsel, it's no longer special. It defeats the purpose of the special counsel in the first place.
Yeah, they were trying to say, and I read into it, and I read that some people will argue the controversy around it, right? That he wasn't they'll say he should have been voted by the Senate. He should have been confirmed by the Senate. But my thing is, right, in the future, right, if you want to argue that controversy and have Congress go back and check the rules around that and pass a law to reaffirm something with the Constitution, there, be my guest. But we still have precedent of attorney generals appointing lower officers.
And
so yeah, it's just
none of them said that when Robert Hur was a special counsel to investigate Biden's documents case. Were any of them how dare Robert Hur do this? He's not properly appointed.
Yeah, no, because it's because, right, they know that the substance of the arguments, right, what Trump did, and they don't want to. It's the same way. Oh God, I'll forever hate the mens rea argument. What was his state of mind? Did he know he was lying? And they'll say it doesn't matter that every single admin, doesn't matter that Raffensperger, Gabriel Sterling, Rusty Bowers, Bomovich. It doesn't matter that any of these people, his own, even judges that he appointed, are literally telling him, "Sir, you lost. You probably lost."
And he admitted that he lost to people like Cassidy Hutchinson and Alyssa Farah Griffin and some random staffer on Navy, whatever it is, Marine Force One. And I mean, the crazy thing to me is he is quoted as saying to Mike Pence, "Mike, you're too honest." I don't know what bigger state of mind proof you need, where it's he was actively and on purpose lying to stay in power.
Yeah, and what's also crazy, because that was one of the things that I saw you posted the other day, and I liked when you posted that. What's also so crazy about that as well is that have you watched the Frontlines documentary Democracy on Trial? Have you watched that?
That sounds really familiar, but I don't think I have. But I think I've heard. Yeah,
so it's after I started reading a lot of the stuff, I watched that documentary about it too. Yeah. And it has so many of the people that testified at the J6 committee and frontline reporters and stuff. It shows that the day after the election, Kushner and I think Ivanka, I don't know if it was Ivanka, but I know Kushner came into the Oval Office to try to explain to Trump why he had lost the election, where he maybe fell short, and Trump wasn't having it. Instantly from there, he just went on about it was fraud, and that was when he almost doubled down on wanting to recruit Rudy Giuliani, Kenneth Chesebro, Boris Epstein, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, and you pointed out to it on your thing where you literally said that the stuff that Sidney Powell was saying, he related it to fucking Star Trek,
but then he used it.
Yeah, and then he used it. He just redraft. And the craziest thing about that is I think it's like I said, it's Trump, right? When a crazy lawyer does it that's associated with him, people aren't going to believe it. But then when he recycles it and just retunes it to use it himself, people are like, oh wow, maybe it was true. Like I don't know where that thought process. People's brains are so fundamentally warped by Trump.
I think the most important thing about Trump that is missed is like a lot of people think, oh, Trump's such an idiot. He thinks he actually won 2020. Trump doesn't think he won 2020. He knows for a fact he lost 2020, and that's the whole point. Is he wants you to think he believes it, so that when he challenges it, it seems like it's coming from some kind of pure intention of like, I just want fairness. When in reality, he uses the veneer of law and order and fairness and all these things to just advance his own personal agenda. And it's like, this has not caught on enough. Even some people on the left are like, "Oh, this silly man Trump. He doesn't. He understands. He knows. He knows he's a criminal." There was reporting that when he was indicted on the classified documents, I've tried to find this article. He was telling people that work for him, "Oh, this is a strong case. I'm kind of fucked on this one." Like everyone knew the classified documents case against him was like airtight. I saw Ben Shapiro did a show, and he was like, "I'm not gonna lie, guys. This is like pretty fucking bad."
Yeah, no, and the scariest thing is that he's never right. The whole thing is that when it comes to the 2020 election, and I think why still so many people are still going to believe it is because he's never going to own it, right? If he came out tomorrow and said I actually lost the 2020 election and I lied, right? Like, well, one, I mean that would create so much power for prosecutors to go after him in the future for those crimes, and then two, I mean his fans, right? His voters would have to literally like so many of his voters would have to wake up and look in the mirror and be like,
I think a lot of them, they wouldn't believe him, and they would say like, "Oh my God, the Jewish media is like blackmailing him and making him say that." They would find some way to say like, "Oh, Trump's being forced to do this. It's not true."
And what's so crazy about the whole J6 stuff too is like you talk to so many people who say like because I don't know if you know Destiny and Dev, right, on Wick debated like a bunch of them, like people that were actually at the Capitol that day. And the craziest thing is that like
was Enrique Tarrio there?
Yeah, Enrique Tarrio and I think like a couple other guys. Yeah. I think I talked to like a person who also said he knew a guy that was in jail because of it. I don't know how truthful that was. I'm starting to think that like these people too that were arrested, right? Because I looked up the guy's name afterwards, the guy that I was talking to about this on TikTok, and he even like and I'm not even like a popular guy or the guy I was like talking to. We're like regular, like we're not like popular like you or other people. And I'm starting to still think that even on like on a lower ground level, like these people like when they talk to people about what happened, they're creating lies themselves. Like I think Enrique Tarrio, from what I read, specific parts about his lies actually kind of shielded and protected Trump because and not coming forth with the truth, because Roger Stone, right, and Michael Flynn were both pardoned by Trump in the weeks leading up to January 6th, and they were seen with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and the One Percenters, you know, and it's just crazy how like they were there at the Capitol. That's like I think when people
Trump told like I know they have weapons, but like let them through the metal detectors anyways because they're my people. It's like they knew all the ingredients were there for this to happen. It's kind of sus that they didn't expect it. Maybe they probably did, honestly.
And the crazy thing. Planned. Yeah, and the crazy thing about an insurrection, right? I think when you say the word insurrection, people don't think definitionally, they just think violence and they think like extreme like destruction and like death. But in reality, like when you break down just the definition of what insurrection and why like BLM had some really bad riots in Antifa, right? But like January 6th is an insurrection is because it's like it's all like a strategic kind of centralized plot. And when you look at it, right, Trump for all these 2 months was creating lies, created the fake electors, right, had all his attorneys. He told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. People that he pardoned were interacting with these people. They planned to go there. They were on the way to the Capitol when it happened. They literally said, we were going to do this. You had Biggs, Nordine at the front of the overwhelming of the barricades. Pizzola broken with a shield, right? Trump was continuing to repeat all the lies. He gathered all of them there. Charlie Kirk was busing people. I think other people associated with Trump were flying people in. That's what makes it the insurrection, is how strategically methodical, organized it was to resist the implementation of the certification of the vote.
Fuentes and Alex Jones were there too, I believe. Like there was a lot of melding of the minds there where the entire right wing was kind of coalescing around this idea of like, oh, there's one more chance where Mike Pence can do the right thing. And it's like these people, honestly, all of them, all the lawyers need to be disbarred and all these people need to be thrown in jail. And it's like I'm at the point now, I said this yesterday, If we have another election, which I'm not feeling too optimistic about that, the next Democratic president needs to actually send them to CCOT. I'm not even joking. Send them to CCOT, strong arm El Salvador into doing it. I think it's possible.
Yeah, right. Hopefully, man. Hopefully, you're able to as well debate more of these people on J6. Because I feel like the craziest thing too, like sometimes I don't even know if I have the patience. Like I try to debate them on it, and I do have the patience, but it's like the moment I'm getting like filibustered, and I can see 2 or 3 or 4 people jumping in or asking all these random questions. What about Pelosi? Or what about BLM? Or what about this? Yeah. Or like, what about he's an illegitimate president, or Al Gore, right? The 2000 election, and it's like it's so annoying having to break every one of those down, because it's like, okay, yeah, Al Gore 2000 election, right? So Al Gore wasn't making up a new precedent. He was talking about like voter suppression and recounting more votes, and after they denied that, right, he conceded the day before the state certified the results. Even like Hillary with like the dossier, right, which wasn't as objective as the Mueller report, she still conceded the day after. And then Obama's FBI concluded that the interference was not with the vote tallies, it was bot harvesting from Russia, which we do know for a fact happened. So there wasn't like the same kind of American institutional election denial of how we count, collect, and certify votes. And then there wasn't the insurrection where Trump literally sent them to the Capitol, never conceded, and didn't even concede after the certification happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of debate on like you're saying, the term insurrection, and the term that I mostly use is actually attempted coup. I think like attempted coup is like a more specific thing than insurrection, where it's like if you look up on Wikipedia self coup, one of the examples says January 6th. Like I think it's considered pretty widely to be a coup by people that actually study these things. And like more broadly speaking, I think the issue here is like there's just some percentage of the population that has like legitimately lost their mind. And I don't even debate January 6th much anymore, because it's like if you're still defending January 6th, there's nothing to be gained from debating you, and no one who agrees with you is going to change their mind from watching me say some shit. I feel like we're so beyond that at this point.
I know what you mean, and the scariest thing too is that I think some of the tier 1 people, like I think the tier 2 people are just crazy, like Candace Owens, and they actually believe what they say, right? I don't know, like I wonder if Candace Owens actually believes the things she says, or if she's just an operator.
Go back and forth on her, but a lot of them, I agree with the distinction where it's like there's the true believers and the people that know they're lying to them.
Yeah, because and I'm starting to think even some of these people on TikTok, right? Like I'm getting caught in the weeds. Like I think some of these people know they're lying. I think some of these people don't, and I almost think there's like a group of people that like kind of believe it and just want to forget about it, or they just hope that like it doesn't get brought up anymore.
It's also a lot of cope. People will like suppress doubts that they have, and they'll be like, "Oh no, I'm part of this big movement. I have to believe it. I have to stand strong." But I think that it's more people than we would assume that are actively lying on purpose. I'm forgetting which right-winger influencer it was that recently got exposed for talking behind the scenes. Like, Sarah Stock, how she, that is, who got exposed for like cheating on her husband, even though she's like a super trad wife type of person.
I think I heard.
And there was like a bunch of these leaked conversations where all these like Gen Z right-wing TikTok Jubilee people behind the scenes were like, I don't really believe any of this shit. I just say it for money.
That's crazy. So, yeah, that's
because the money they're getting good. I don't know if Tenet Media has like a bunch of subsidiaries or like similar companies, but they're making good money.
That is pretty insane. Yeah, that is objectively pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just I really wonder where the country's going from here. It does feel like I mean, dude, it feels like 1 year of Trump is like 10 years. You know what I mean?
I think it's gonna get way worse. I've been saying to everyone, I think that 2026 is going to be like a year that really goes down in history. I think the election stuff is going to be really, 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 really bad.
Yeah, and I just, how many conservatives do you think are going to follow him off the cliff with, we need ICE at the polls and there could be a lot of illegals voting again?
I think that when he fucks with the elections and the midterms, the only people that are going to be left supporting him are the real ride or die 22% that are like, no matter what truck, you could shit in my mouth, I'll say thank you. Like those people are going to stick around anywhere from like 20 to 27%. But I could see his disapproval hitting high 60s, low 70s. So I do think that like he is slowly bleeding support. Actually, if you look at especially like let me pull it up actually, because I paid for Nate Silver's thing where he has this Trump approval rating thing, and first you see these top line numbers of just like approval versus disapproval, or it's like this 53.6 on average disapprove and 42.9 on average approve, but the actual important number to me is the strength of it. So if you look at like strong disapproval, people who are like, I don't just dislike Trump, I fucking hate Trump. When he first came into office, it's like around 32%. And now it's an average of 46.7%. And the strong approve, when he came in, it was like around 33% of like, I'm ride or die Trump. And now it's 23.5% Trump. If you look at the actual weak approval and weak disapproval, it's been kind of stagnant. People who are like, I kind of don't like him, I kind of do like him. People that are like ride or die, I hate him or love him, that is actually starting to change a lot. And I think you're going to see like, even if on paper his approval rating is like similar to Biden's, the intensity of the disapproval is so much different. The average person who said, I disapprove of Biden was like, he's kind of old, he's kind of annoying, like I don't really know what he's doing, prices are high. The average person who disapproves of Trump is like, I fucking hate this fascist. So like, I really think that it's the reason he wants to get involved and change the results is because he knows his political capital is dead. He is, I think polls are undercounting how hated he is. I think if we had free and fair elections, James Talarico is winning Texas. I think Democrats are winning, Mary Peltola is winning the Alaska Senate seat. I think we're on the precipice of an Obama 2008 type landslide. And I think because that's where we are, Trump is going to stop at nothing to steal the election because he knows if he lets it happen, it's the nail in his coffin. Democrats take the House and the Senate.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, my question to you about that is, do you think there's a very scary like reality that at the end of this midterm, Republicans still have all control of Congress, or no?
Yeah, I think right now where I stand, I think that they'll succeed in stealing the election because the plans that I've seen that they're working on, I don't see anyone even talking about it, let alone working on it. So, for example, there was, I think, Bost versus Illinois, where the Supreme Court recently said candidates have automatic standing to challenge election rules. This was just never the case before. This is massive new precedent where now, if you redo January 6th, a lot of the Trump legal challenges, they now have standing in court and they actually get litigated, which could mean at the very least, if you have people like Ken Paxton challenging election results, you could have a district judge issuing an injunction or a TRO on counting or certifying ballots, and then deadlines start passing. You have precedent being set with in Fulton County, Georgia, where they're sending in FBI to execute a search warrant where they're taking the ballots and they're refusing to fill out the paperwork for chain of custody. Once you've broken the chain of custody on ballots, there's no way to keep track of what the votes even are. And my worry is that Trump sends in a task force of FBI agents or DHS agents, not everywhere, just into a swing district in Texas, a swing district in North Carolina, in Alaska and Iowa, and all they have to do is seize 2,000 ballots, 3,000 ballots in a state that's going to come down to 0.3 points margin of victory. That could be the difference between who wins and who loses. And once the federal government has taken those votes into their custody, when they return the votes, we don't know, have you thrown some away? Have you added some? Have you altered people's selections for who they voted for? Because the chain of custody was broken when you took it. And because they now have so much more foothold in the courts where they're challenging mail-in ballots, and the Supreme Court does seem poised to possibly rule that ballots, even if they're sent before Election Day, if they're received after Election Day, we're not going to count them. What does that do? It says, okay, now all we have to do is go to all these blue areas and just delay their mail by a day. And even if they shipped it out perfectly on time, if it gets there after Election Day, too bad, so sad. So there are like 5 or 6 different fronts: national security, messing with the mail, automatic standing, all of these different levers, which low-key work in theory. I don't know why they wouldn't work in practice. And it's like they have 10 different methods. All they need is for one of them to work. That's my worry. It's not like last time where everything's hanging on Mike Pence. Now they have like 10 different plans, and even if 6 of them fail, that's 4 that work.
That's crazy. So they can literally, what you're saying is that they're going to be able to seize people's votes like on the day of?
Here's the thing. The legality of the seizure doesn't matter. So for example, let's say that it's Texas Election Day and it's James Talarico versus Ken Paxton, and polls close, I don't know, 9 or 10 p.m. And immediately Trump gives a emergency speech saying, Tulsi Gabbard and my attorney general and Kash Patel have informed me that illegal immigrants were involved in Texas voting in these and these districts. These are swing districts. So I have gotten, you know how they did in Fulton County, bullshit affidavit to get a warrant for a seizure of the ballots. So I'm sure that there are crazy like right-wing judges in Texas district courts all they have to do is get one of those judges to sign off on a warrant. Now they have a warrant to go in and seize the ballots. Once that happens, it's over because the chain of custody is now broken. And on top of that, what they can do is if they do declare, okay, there was foreign interference or illegal immigrants voted, then people like Ken Paxton or Greg Abbott, people who are working on the state level, they can use that as a justification to say, I'm going to challenge these election laws because XYZ law allowed illegals to vote. And even if they're lying or making it up, the fact that the court now has to hear it because they have standing, they don't have to do anything perfect. They just have to nullify enough votes in the right states. That's what's scary about it. They don't have to go in with the fucking military into like every single state ever and take every single ballot box. They just have to go to the states where elections very, very close and go to swing districts and start messing with the ballots in some way. Even if it's appealed and a judge later rules, oh, when you seized those ballots, that was actually illegal. Well, it's too late. They already seized it. So now, even if afterwards you say it was illegal, the chain of custody is broken. So yeah, it's not to be too doomer, but it's pretty bad.
So and like what you're saying is like those votes, right, might not even be counted afterwards, or they might be like they could alter the votes, they could toss some of the votes. They can't be counted.
So once like let's say they take 3,000 votes from Texas and they audit them, and then whatever they return to Texas, we have no way of knowing how legitimate that is because
that's insane.
They could have changed it. They could have maybe kept it the same. They could have removed some, added some, changed people's things. And then even if they have some kind of like digital footprint or something, unless you have the proper paperwork filled out, because there's very strict rules about chain of custody, you cannot move a single box of votes 1 square inch without meticulously documenting it. And if you have the feds coming in and just taking it somewhere, we don't know where they're taking it, it's like that election's now null and void. So now what do you have? Maybe the judge rules special election, and in the meantime, the governor gets to appoint the senator, which means in red states, Ken Paxton wins anyways, regardless, if Greg Abbott just appoints him.
So the governor could just appoint the senator essentially at that point?
Yeah, if courts are issuing injunctions on counting votes or certifying votes, or votes have been nullified because chain of custody was broken, then you'd probably have judges saying, okay, in the meantime, the governor, as it already is right now, is going to appoint the temporary senator.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then even if they don't do that, Mike Johnson and JD Vance are going to say, we're not going to swear you in.
That is just beyond, I don't even know. I feel like at that point, right? Like, I feel like at that point, like, there's no way, like, that people won't look at that as illegitimate, right?
Exactly. I think it's going to be, I think a lot of people are going to realize, oh shit, this is really bad when it's too late. A lot of people don't realize that they're in boiling water till it starts bubbling, and then you're already fucked. So,
man, the craziest thing too, like, I feel like Mark Elias, right? I feel like he's talked about this too. And you probably do you watch him? Yeah, he's awesome.
Brian Tyler Cohen is like one of my favorite people.
Yeah, he's great too. Yeah, I can only because I feel like Destiny. He's really like he does talk a lot about politics, but I feel like he's tuned out about that. Like, he doesn't like to predict the future. I feel like if that happened,
I feel like a lot about some of this stuff, which I'd expect to be more interested in. But yeah.
I feel like his brain, if that happens, what you're saying happens, I think his brain would like explode. Like, I don't think there's any
return. That's the thing. I've talked about this before, and people sometimes are like, oh, don't say that. Like, you're bumming everyone out. But it's like, I feel like you have to be aware of the risk if you want to have any hope of being prepared for it.
And it's so crazy you say it, because I've been so doomer, because all everyone is saying is that we're going to take the House back. We might even take the Senate. And like the whole time, like the moment he got elected, I told everybody that where I work, right? Even like I work at like a pizza place, you know what I'm saying? Like, the crazy thing is, like, I actually got my taxes cut, and I knew that would happen, but I still was telling people I would not trade that over, I would not trade that for democracy or for like just rapid acceleration in spending, people losing their health care, people losing Medicare, purging the entire civil service, right, of people you don't like, specifically going after like black women the way he's going after in the civil service, because they're the ones that want to fight the most on his actions. Yep. And dude, the election stuff, like it really, like, because I feel like if we get 2 more years of a Republican controlled Congress with Trump, I don't even necessarily think it's going to be so he can get like tons of laws passed. Like, I mean, if he picks up seats, do you think he might pick up seats as well, or just that they'll maintain what they have?
I mean, I think in practice he could pick up seats, as in he will only allow Republicans to be installed, even if the Republicans technically lost. So like on paper, I think it's going to be a blue tsunami, but I think in terms of in practice, again, like we saw with, I'm blanking on her name, Adelita Grijalva, I think, where because she was going to be the final deciding vote on the discharge petition for the Epstein files, Mike Johnson delayed her swearing in for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I said at the time, this is a test run for something else. You don't just do this, willy-nilly. It's like they've and this is a whole different avenue than what I talked about with the mail vote. So it's like there are so many different ways they could do this, which is what's so scary.
Do you like? I'm saying, like, do you think we're gonna have like potentially larger Republican majorities in Congress? Wow,
I would actually lean in the direction that that's probably what happens.
Oh my gosh, dude! What you're saying,
I
bro?
hope I'm wrong. I would love so much to look back at this and be like, wow, I was tweaking out. But I feel like that's what's gonna happen.
Dude, what you're saying is like total like Lincoln Project. We leave NATO. Like we get more legislation that concentrates more power into the executive. Like at that point, it'll be easier for him to do his job in an authoritarian way because he'll be able to get laws passed and then he'll just sign a bunch of executive orders after the law gets passed.
Who right now are getting cold feet of like, wait a second, if I'm too close to Trump, I might lose my election. I'll just tell them, listen, if you're with me, I'll make sure you never lose a fucking election. And then it's like your proximity to Trump determines your electoral chances, like literally in terms of like vote interference.
What do you think happens to like the freedom that you and I are having this conversation right now to happen if what the things you're talking about happens in November?
I think practically speaking, we'll still have that freedom. I think the issue becomes more so like if and when that happens, America is a failed state and every single governor needs to be looking at secession. Like that sounds extreme and we probably lose that fight, honestly, against the feds. But once you have the ending of elections and he's installing people that are Republicans, it's like every rule is off the tape. This is just a different world we've now entered. And I think we need to start acting like we've already entered it right now because I'm really worried that a lot of governors and like these high-ranking lawyers, they're going to like lock in after it's already too late. I feel like we need to be right now preventing this stuff.
Yeah. What's your take? So a lot of people, right? Like, cause I also wonder the optics of some of this stuff. Like, I think what Gavin Newsom did in California was amazing with Prop 50. And I think like it was crazy how like with Texas, how like they tried to do what they wanted to do, but then they kind of got blocked.
Yeah.
Have any of the other states that Trump enlisted to gerrymander, have they been able to successfully do so yet or no?
I'm blanking on which one it was. Maybe it was Indiana or something or Idaho.
I know there was a few.
There was another one that they ended up not doing it. So I think it's varying here and there. And honestly, it's like, for me, the districting interference is like the least concerning thing. Like if that's the only thing they were doing, I'd be way less concerned than I think they have much bigger things planned. And this is also another thing they do is like, I feel like they're really good at misdirecting and making everyone expect one thing, which is they think is tolerable. And then they do something way more extreme out of left field. And like someone said they already gerrymandered Georgia. So like, yeah, I actually think it's like less relevant which red states do and don't gerrymander right now versus like, is the actual counting of votes going to be interfered with? That's the scary thing for me.
Yeah. I loved your philosophy, right? The video, right? The other day before I followed you on here. I think it was actually on Instagram that I saw the video. And then that's when I looked up if you had a TikTok. So I was like, I'm on TikTok now. I got to follow this guy. The debate you had with Shapiro, oh my goodness. The part where you said about how like it's still like a democracy, like kind of like a facade democracy, but like authoritarian.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like everything like you said, and then every little headline, like everything you said essentially came true. Like on that, like you basically kind of like looking back, like I wonder if Shapiro like ever thinks about that conversation.
I think he probably does. I think, yeah, there's no way he doesn't because I think he got cooked. I mean, he opened by saying Democrats are more likely to defy the courts. And then by the end of it, he's saying, well, there's precedent for defying the court. So it's actually not that bad anyways if Trump does it. So that was really rough for him. And I think like, I hate that I was right about that because I'm like, fuck, if I was right about that, I hope I'm not right about this too. I really would like to be wrong about some of these things. But yeah, I feel like it was very obvious. And I wasn't the only one to predict these things that like, he's going to come in, install sycophants, do mass firings, start laying the groundwork to defy courts and militarize our streets so you can interfere with elections. It's exactly what happened.
You were there and Dean Withers was there too, right? Weren't you Dean Withers?
Dean, Parker, yeah.
What was I going to say? Do you think Shapiro, like, cause like I try to give Shapiro good faith sometimes, but like sometimes I'm just I can't with this guy.
I now think there's a special place in hell for him. I think Shapiro is actually worse than some of the MAGA people because Shapiro knows exactly what the fuck he's doing. Him and Marco Rubio, those two, they used to be never Trumpers. Go back and watch them in 2016. They were saying all the right stuff about Trump. They didn't just forget that stuff. If anything, it's gotten more serious since then. So Shapiro and Rubio and people like Vivek Ramaswamy, they know exactly what this is, and they're just so hungry for power and influence, they don't care.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that, and the crazy thing, you can just tell like Shapiro, right, out of all of the conservatives, right, the no new wars conservatives that are kind of like disillusioned, still like authoritarian, still anti like immigration, right, still election deniers, but they don't like the conflict stuff. Shapiro is just like all in on the war. I mean, he's like, this is like, I feel like this is like as a Zionist, right, a devout Zionist, right, like this is like he's been waiting for this. This is
why he is willing to accept Trump's authoritarianism, is because he's just like a super ultra pro-Zionist person who's like, you can suppress all of American civil liberties as long as Israel gets more support.
And the craziest thing too, what I wasn't expecting, like I wasn't surprised, like when Charlie Kirk, right, the David J. Harrises of the world, and even like Fox News consistently slandered Kilmar as a criminal, even like Matt Walsh, right, Michael Knowles. But then even when Shapiro started doing it, that's when I literally like completely was just like done with him, because I was like, this is like the facts over feelings guy, right? Like even though he's a Trump guy, he still will like provide some kind of like criticism. And I almost feel like he's and it's sad. It just makes him weak, but it's like he's kind of been like gatekeep feared into like, because he literally called January 6th an insurrection after it happened. It's like when Trump was gone. When Trump was gone out of power, right? He's willing to be critical, but it's almost like now that Trump's back, he'll just like, and that's why I say I feel like sometimes he looks in the mirror and he's like, I'm a liar, like I'm the ultimate.
I'm working on a YouTube video about this, but I think he has a guilty conscience, and I think you can see it at his was it his CPAC speech where he was like, we have an obligation to challenge people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly, and he's now complaining about radicalism in the Republican Party as if he didn't open the door and put a welcome mat down for them. Like he's complaining about Nick Fuentes and his influence. Bro, you created this environment. You allowed this to happen.
Yeah.
And I think he's trying to compensate for that now.
Yeah. It's so crazy too, because when I first got into politics, right, like I used to just have like the weirdest kind of craziest beliefs about stuff, and I used to just think it's all like Illuminati and all of that, right? I don't believe that anymore, but I did. I was just that, yeah, and like now when I go back, right, now that I see like all the crazy stuff Trump's doing, and like wow, like he's the exact thing that Alex Jones was constantly like fear mongering about, like, and it's almost like looking back, I'm like, holy cow, like when Obama was president and I started getting into all these conspiracy theories and I wasn't necessarily a Republican, like I didn't like Bush either. I didn't even know what parties were. I just was like, all these presidents and government people are all just corrupt and evil. Mm-hmm. And like now looking at him, like, holy cow, like Obama, like I actually like, sure, he wasn't perfect, but I genuinely think like I felt secure in my country, and like even with like Biden, like whereas like now, like I really do go to sleep at night and wake up thinking like, what is America going to look like in the next 10 to 15 years? Like, you know what I mean? What is it going to look like with this administration?
I'm trying to have the silver lining of like maybe after the Civil War we'll make something better. I don't know.
I hope I so hope you're wrong about the Civil War thing, but
do too, yeah.
And the crazy thing, right? Like, when we had the first Civil War, right? At least like there was like, like construct, right? The government still like was functioning. I don't know if another Civil War would look like that. Like, I don't know if the government.
I think that like the good guys would lose this Civil War, because ultimately, unless the military was to defect, like no amount of state governments and National Guards is going to stand up to the federal government and the military. So it's kind of cooked.
Yeah. What do you think of Kissinger? Do you like Adam Kinzinger?
That sounds. Oh, Adam Kinzinger. Yeah. He's great.
Yeah. It's crazy because he's even like he's even said like the Confederates like never, like him and Destiny did a interview recently. And yeah, he essentially did say that like the Confederates in a way like never died. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think about that flag on January 6th going into the Capitol. And it's crazy, right? It makes me think like it's crazy how
part of why they're so crazy is like these people feel aggrieved that the Confederacy lost and that the Jim Crow South lost. Like there's a certain sect of society that just hates progressive social change, and they hate like institutions and science and all these things. And time again, they've lost the cultural battles. They lost on slavery. They lost on segregation. They lost on women's rights and child labor laws and all these things. And finally, Trump showed up, and after like Shapiro talks about this. A lot of the right sees like, oh, we tried playing by the left's rules with Mitt Romney and they were so mean to him. So now we're going to say fuck the rules and be super racist and super authoritarian. So there is a bit of this idea of like, finally we're standing up against these institutions and these cultural Marxists, whatever they think we are. And a lot of it is just like they want revenge for this stuff.
Yeah, it's so crazy how like people think like the American government is Marxist. Like where did we even get to the point where like, because the whole idea, the constant idea of like the right and why they go into every conversation just questioning everything, except unless it's their own knowledge from like Trump and all their Trump supporter media. It's almost like everything is wrong. Like every piece of media, right, that kind of has said things about Trump or says stuff about like Republican failures or policies, it's always, well, it must be wrong. It must not be correct. They must be lying. They hate him, you know, and they don't realize that kind of like their brain isn't really operating from a place of logic. It really is operating from a true place of emotion.
Yeah. And it is also just like the fact that I think the conservative movement in the United States after Reagan just kept taking a bunch of L's over and over and over again. And then they were fuming when Obama won in 2008. They thought they had a chance in 2012 and Obama won again. And I think there was a feeling like going into 2016 that like, oh, the Democrats are just like, they rule everything now. Like you don't even need to really try. Hillary's going to win walking away with it. And I think that American conservatives felt like so defeated and so aggrieved that like these social progressives have won so decisively and they rocked our shit so many times so decisively that now we have to play within their game. You had Republican officials were talking about maybe we need like a more diversity in our party. They would never say this shit now. Maybe we have to be more woke on gay marriage and all this stuff. And there was a certain segment of the Republican Party that was like, oh, we have to liberalize and modernize. And people hated that because it was kind of accepting the paradigm of the social progressives. And then Trump comes in and he's like, oh, actually racism is good actually and democracy is bad and fuck everyone. And people that felt like they had been quote unquote silenced by the mainstream or whatever, they were like, oh, this guy is not only not playing by the rules, he refuses to operate within that paradigm. He says the media is fake. He says the experts are wrong and actually fuck everyone. And like we've been thinking that for so long, but we could never actually say it. And now we have someone who's like bucking all the social progress of the last century. And it's crazy if you compare right now to 2015. Society was way, way, way more socially progressive in 2015 than it is now. And I'm trying to think of like another period in recent history where we socially regressed. Like people are way more racist, way more sexist, way more anti-Semitic, way more transphobic than they were in 2015. And if you look back then, 2015 was way more progressive than 2005, than 1995. So it's like they've actually started to change the direction of social progress, which is very worrying.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. Like, I don't even, like, I feel like 10, 12, 13 years ago, right? Like, sure, like, being around people that might have had, like, kind of certain, like, racist undertone beliefs maybe, but, you know what I mean? But it wasn't so just kind of, like, it just wasn't so out in the open, you know, like, these theories about all these things. And it does feel like he essentially, like, I think it's almost like when he decided he was going to run, I think it kind of gave life to a lot of these new ideas to come to the forefront. And when you listen to like how like the rhetoric, it gets more, people get numbed to it over time, right? When he ran in 2015, he kind of said it very like as like a game show host, like how they're sending their worst, they're sending these people, right? They're sending rapists, murderers, people, and maybe some good people. And then like when you listen to him give his speech about like the Haitians, right? Like not the eating the cats and dogs, the part where he said, oh, Springfield, and like they're like sodomizing women, like the way his tone, right, just over that 9-year period, it's like the mask just totally came off.
Here's the biggest thing on this. In his first term, Trump was accused of calling African countries shitholes, which he vehemently denied. Now he calls them shitholes on Truth Social openly. And he says Somalis, they're just wired different. They have a low IQ. And think back to when Trump first announced, when he said, oh, Mexicans are coming in, they're rapists. You had other Republicans saying that Trump is racist and he's socially regressive. And why would he say this? And now you can come out and say, I hate black people. And that's like apparently a normal opinion to have in society.
And now all the people too that like that had a problem with it, or that were kind of like the people like that would the people that didn't like it then, but then he got elected and got numb to it. Now if you say, what about when he said all those things, they'll say, oh well, you know, you have some of them, right? Or the cartel. So it's like almost like even the people that aren't championing it from this position of radicalism, there still is like this kind of like it kind of proves that people's minds are like fertile in the sense that like once you plant that seed, like the conditioning can kind of like take over. And it's scary to see, like, even I think this, like, people talk about how like younger people are being radicalized, whether they're being radicalized in the left or the right direction. I think the scariest thing is that like how many older people are being kind of radicalized by Trumpism.
Facebook AI clips of here's Joe Biden killing a child and drinking his blood.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Yeah, I just I feel like we're gonna like, if we do make it out on the other side of this, like psychologists are really gonna study like Trumpism and like the psychology effect of it and how it all happened, how we all like, you know, scientists are really gonna want to break it all down. Like,
yeah, it definitely seems like I don't know. Sometimes it kind of feels like the world is ending, but hopefully it's not that over. Hopefully we can come back from this.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah. Have you ever thought about running for office at some point in your lifetime, or are you just gonna stick to?
I'm sure I thought about it when I was younger, but now that I'm more involved in this shit, like that sounds like the worst shit ever to run for office, where like everyone is scrutinizing every single thing you've ever said in your life and all your family and all your friends. I like the media space. I just want to do political commentary, I think.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. You know, it's crazy when looking like at Kamala too, right? Like people have to like nitpick for everything and then mislead you about it. Like they talk about like, oh, the 1,800 men she put in jail as an attorney general, when it was like, she wasn't a district attorney anymore who doesn't even preside over those prosecutions. And then when you look at the number breakdown of those 1,800 people anyways, it was like 860 something in her first year, and then it was only a little over 100 in her final year. So the number actually
people never talk about. They talk about the raw number of like non-violent marijuana convictions, but if you actually look at the trend line over time, those convictions went down over her tenure.
Yeah, and then when she was a district attorney, she didn't even prosecute that many people for marijuana over the course of her 7 years either. And it's the same thing how you see like Democrats, how we were talking about how they get hit from both sides, right? Conservative prosecutors will say she's too lenient on prosecution. People on the left will say she's too punitive. And then conservatives, just to endorse Trump, will then go to that angle and say she's too punitive, but then you'll catch them saying she's too lenient. Whereas like Trump was like the first president in his first term in like 100 years to conduct the capital the capital executions that he did. Like he like specifically like made capital punishment, like brought it back as a president. Like I'm like, this dude is like putting people to death. Like what are we talking about here? Like,
if there's one silver lining here, and I'm gonna wrap the live up after this was a really good conversation, it's that Trump has said on Truth Social that the punishment for sedition is death. So I hope he keeps that same energy if he's ever found guilty of sedition, although he's probably going to pardon himself, but still, you never know.
Yeah, man. I hope, because I've been watching the viewership, I hope like me just kind of coming in here and like, you know, us having like a kind of like just a conversation. I hope that didn't mess with the views or anything.
No, the algorithm was fucking me today anyway, so it's probably going to be this anyways. You're fine.
Okay. Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on, bro. Like I really enjoyed it. I hope we talk again in the future.
Absolutely. Take care, man.
Yep.
And yeah, I noticed earlier today when I hopped on and I was stuck at like 40 viewers that the algorithm gods are not favoring me today, but I was like, if I'm already live, I might as well yap a little bit. But that was a decent yap sesh. People can watch the live VOD on YouTube as well. And we'll see if you guys see me again tomorrow or in 2 weeks. And yap, he did. So true. Very true. But yeah, this is the graph I've been meaning to talk about recently. I think this is telling a very good story, because just look, you see divergence. More people hate him, less people love him, and then the number of people that feel indifferent is kind of just mid. Amazing conversation. I agree. And I know Attorney General Okra was in here earlier. I don't know if he was in the requests. I don't think he was. All right, I'm going to go eat my food now. Good talk. Good live. Oh, let's go. One of my TikToks is finally doing well. Okay. Trump's latest approval rating was 32%. How are you so well read up on Middle Eastern issues? I'm not. I'm really, really not. Please take everything I say with a grain of salt. I've just watched a few PBS documentaries and read a few Wikipedia pages. I'm sure there are massive gaps in my knowledge, especially in terms of history, like the context behind stuff. Like the stuff I kind of know a little bit about is like the history of the Israel-Palestine stuff, somewhat. And then the Iran-Saudi Arabia proxy war. So it's mostly Middle East stuff that I kind of know. You know the Dunning-Kruger thing? Hold on. I think there's a graph for it, right? Yeah. Confidence and knowledge. So there's this thing where it's like when you first learn a very, very little bit about something, you think you know it all. So your confidence is very high. And then as you start to learn more about it, you realize how little you know. So I'm somewhere here where I'm like, I know more than the guy that's at the peak, but he's probably actually way more confident than I am, even though he knows less than me. And getting here is tough. Getting to the end of this is tough, but we'll try. Need a sub to Foreign Affairs. The thing with Foreign Affairs is like a lot of it is history. And then history is just like, or how far back are we going? We're going back to fucking sticks and stones and caves and shit? Or what are we doing here? I watched the Vox video about Saudi-Israel Cold War. It's great. Saudi-Iran, yeah. And the PBS Frontline documentaries on this are great. I would highly... Everything I know, and this is why I say the massive gap in my knowledge, a vast majority of what I know comes from PBS Frontline documentaries. Oh my God. Shattered Dreams of Peace, banger. If you want to learn more about Israel and Palestine, banger documentary. Mitch McConnell, I don't think so. You want to know what's a great Frontline episode? If you want to feel conflicted about something, go and watch, I think it's called Biden's Decision. They really humanized the fuck out of him. I was like, wow. I still want him out, but like, damn. Great watch. I think it's called Biden's Decision. It's about like his life story and it's kind of tragic. His like whole life story was like, when they push you down and everyone you know dies and everyone hates you, stand up and you keep fighting and you win. And then he got pushed out of the nomination, which was for the best, but it's like from his perspective, kind of sucky. Sucks to suck, I guess. That was insensitive, but you get my point. And then, yeah, I think I covered these decently well enough. I'm going to hop off. It was sad. I don't blame Biden for wanting to keep going. Yeah, there's a paradox of like, if you end up as president, you have some kind of delusion of grandeur, which maybe it's not delusional if you actually end up becoming that grand and you win. Algorithm is blessing you now. Maybe the method is say you're about to leave. So true. Wow. I didn't even notice that was happening. I'm still probably going to hop off. I have food waiting for me. Unless someone wants me to explain any of my 9-axis values. Hold on. Explain them all, please. Okay, I'll explain them quickly. And then I'm going to hop off. Okay. Federal versus unitary. This is pretty self-explanatory. And this goes back to my stuff I learned in public finance. Certain things are better done in a centralized fashion. Certain things are better done in a case-by-case basis on a state and local level. Property taxes wouldn't make much sense for the federal government to do that. Garbage pickup. This is like an obvious example, right? But like your trash pickup and stuff, it makes sense to do that on a municipal level. Certain stuff like policing maybe makes more sense on a state level and you can work with local. But I think this makes sense, right? I lean slightly towards more maybe centralization, but I think there's a very, very big role for state sovereignty, massive role for state and local sovereignty. So I'm a big fan of states' rights, actually. as long as it's being used for good reasons and not to fucking do slavery or something. Democracy and authority. This was an interesting set of questions. I'm not like 42% authoritarian. The types of questions I was asked that I think gave me the 42% authority score was like, if I believe it's important to have a very strong leader who can like set the direction and is like very bold and like rallies the people. And I think that is important. I think it is important to have leaders in politics and in any sector of society who are acting as examples. And I'm not a huge fan of like, let's do a ballot referendum on every single tax rate. I think it makes sense to have some kind of deferral to experts or people who know how to lead. But the overarching thing still needs to be the will of the people, which is why I'm 58% democracy, 42% authority. I think representative democracy is actually a great idea, where you're electing someone who you have faith in their judgment and their judgment, their character, and their discretion. So I think there is some role for having individual figureheads who are setting the tone and setting the direction, as long as they're beholden to the actual interests of the people. Extreme globalists, yeah, this is the most extreme result I got anywhere. None of my other things, I think, are even in the 80s, yeah. I'm a big globalist. I'm a big pacifist on a global... War is a failure of humanity. Anytime a war happens, it means we failed as a species. And I think it is important to view humanity as a species. I know it was very corny when conservatives in 2015 were like, I don't see black or white. I don't see color. That's fucking stupid. With that being said, I think it is important that people don't get so siloed off into like, this is my nation and this is my religion and this is my race and I'm on my team and you're on your team. I think this is like the root of all conflict ever. I think the more you splinter off into like, this is my group and that's that group and we're going to fight each other. That's like every war ever was because someone did that in some way or another. So I think the more we can foster a sense of like, we all live on this earth together. We all breathe the same air. We all have mostly the same stuff we want to do. I think it's an important thing to have in mind. And I hate nationalism. I hate it. Like, obviously, in the current context, I want the best for America, obviously. But in terms of, like, if I'm leader of the world or leader of the U.S., what direction am I moving in? I'm moving in a direction of multilateralism and interconnectedness. I agree. Are we to keep getting in conflict for all our existence? Yeah. Moderate pacifist? Yeah. This is where the pragmatic sense of me comes in, where I'm like, listen, I hate war, as I just said. If someone's fucking expanding their territory into Ukraine or something, I don't think we should just stand by and watch that happen, right? You can't be such a globalist that you're like, I'm going to let all these authoritarian regimes and all these imperialists just go around and do all this stuff. There has to be a balance there, right? You think humans are inherently competitive and want to outdo others? To an extent, but like, competitiveness doesn't need to be adversarialness. Is that a word? Antagonism. Like, I feel like people they don't think about like friendly competition. Like, why can you not compete with someone like for fun? Adversarial, yeah. Like, I think like there is some truth to like people want to excel and do better than others and compete with others and be different and unique and all this stuff. And it's like, that's true, but that's not actually mutually exclusive. And this is the thing, losing. I don't think most things are zero sum. Very few things are zero sum. I think most interpersonal, interhuman interactions on any level, whether it's on a one-on-one or nation to nation, I think it's very, very rarely zero sum. And if you understand that it's a positive sum framework, not a zero sum framework, then you can be competitive. I think there's a certain ethos and culture that the right tries to monopolize that I don't like, of like ambition and being like super industrial and like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to achieve all these big things. I think that's a good thing I don't think conservatives should get to own being an entrepreneur or, being unique and like really working hard on something, and being successful. I don't like that conservatives own that, just culturally speaking. I don't like that they own religion and the idea of spirituality in any regard. And moderate freedom, 66% freedom, 34% security. I understand governments have to do some stuff for safety, but I think it's a poison pill. Once you let them into certain things, and then you get a Trump in office. Now, how do you feel about FISA courts? How do you feel about covert intel operations when Trump's the one giving the order? You know what I mean? And I agree, David. Very good point. They don't recognize that nobody does it alone. It requires everyone. It is a symbiotic relationship. And this is what I've been saying. Individualism and collectivism do not have to be at odds. Strong collectives are comprised of strong individuals, and individuals are made stronger when the collective they're part of supports them. It should be a symbiotic relationship. And this is a false dichotomy that really pisses me off. The more self-actualized you are as an individual person, the more of a positive effect you're going to have in your community, and then the better of a safety net or environment that community becomes for other individuals. Conservatives are simply more religious than liberals, but I think conservative religiosity is more of a adherence to dogma. And I think that a left-wing spirituality, if not religiosity, would be more of a belief in higher ideals, things that are bigger than the material. That's all I mean by that. Is like things that are larger than your material life. Individualism is one of the original sins of the U.S. ethos. I agree and disagree in the sense that I think there is something that the U.S. has captured about individualism, but they've gone so far in that direction, it's become perverted. Because I do see, coming from South Asian heritage, that there are issues with very collectivist cultures where constantly the individual is sidelined for the betterment of the family or the village or the country or whatever. And it gets to a point where it can create a lot of other issues as well. So I do think that there's a healthy balance to strike there, and it starts by rejecting the idea that it's a dichotomy to begin with. Yeah, every man is an island is stupid, but everyone is a unique cog in a machine is different, because you can say, as my own individual cog, I'm different than everyone else. I have something different to contribute, but that exists in the context of a society. I think that's the best balance to find there. But yeah, explain the freedom one. What else is there? Equality in markets, yeah. This is pretty self-explanatory. Equality is important, especially if opportunity. But markets are good at allocating, especially goods, elastic goods, I think. Secular versus religious. This is where someone said it was cringe earlier. I think it was Can said it was cringe. What I mean by religious here is not organized religion, and it's definitely nothing about like state-sanctioned religion. But I think when you pivot a society towards secular materialism on a cultural level, that has downsides that people, especially on the left, don't like to contend with. And doesn't mean it's bad. I think we should have a secular government, but there's a reason religion has persevered for so long, and that every single culture has some form of religion, and that people feel drawn to that. And it's not about having a formalized dogma or what do you mean by secular materialism? I mean an emphasis on the material reality of the world, and like and I think people have a lot of religious trauma that they project onto this, but like spirituality does not have to be some kind of oppressive or like indoctrinating type of force. It's what I'm advocating for here is a belief in ideals that are larger than something that can be empirically measured. and living in accordance with those ideals, even if you can't measure them under a microscope, doing the right thing, striving to be a better person, looking for meaning in life. These are not things that science can answer. And if you don't have some kind of answer for them, which I think is spirituality, whatever it is, I think that's going to have negative consequences. And also, I don't know what we mean by a lot of these terms, like very different from spiritualism. Like, I don't know what we even mean when we say spiritual. Like, I'm thinking of something when I say spiritual, and I feel like, also when I say religious, and I feel like other people, when they hear those words, it's evoking a different thing in their head. Which, if you hate when I talk about spirituality and religion, you're gonna hate my Jesse Lee Peterson interview, because I was very candid about my religious spiritual views on that, and I know some people want me to be like atheist warlord or something. What else? Progress and tradition. Maybe this is a hot take or not. We all live by larger ideals. In a sense, I mean, it depends. Subconsciously or making the conscious, everyone has values. Whether or not they're conscious of those values is a different question, and where those values come from is a different question as well. I think in large part those values are ingrained in people by their society, and a society that does not value certain things is not going to produce certain types of people. Like, I don't believe in the idea that the health of a society, and I don't believe religion is required to ingrain these values. I believe religion is one vehicle, which is often imperfect, if not maladaptive, but religion is a vehicle to integrate something, which is those ideals. And there's not religious or like secular ways, I guess, to do that. But these terms become very jumbled at a certain point. I feel like predicating your values or ideals on some greater being or spiritual essence is bad. It depends what you mean by greater being is more problematic than spiritual essence. Because what do you mean by spirit? Like, because just saying you should do good for the sake of good because good is good, I don't know how salient that is. It works for some people. I don't know how salient that is. And I feel like there's been a measured decline in people having purpose and like direction in life, which coincides with the collapse of religion. And again, I'm not defending religion. Like, I'm against theocracy. I'm against like any kind of compulsion here. But I think there's a tendency on the left to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to spirituality and religion. And a lot of it is projecting people's own individual experiences with religion onto like everyone's interaction with it. No, they don't. It's very clear we need to stop faith-based thinking, especially for value secular. You're very militant on this, Cans. I don't know if I agree with you on this. It seems a little bit of an extreme approach. Not because of some external force. When we say external force, I feel like there's an epistemic conversation being had here, as well as like a practical. And Cans, I see you in the request. I need to hop off and eat my food. We're not doing a debate on this right now. You can give me I need to get through this 9-axis thing, and I need to hop off the live for today. Because you're just wrong. Listen, we can agree. This is another thing. It's like, if you are super atheist and hate religion, that's like fine. That's fine. I don't know why we have to agree on that. The food can wait. It can't though. It can't. Progress versus tradition. We don't what? I blanked on what I said. Progress versus tradition. I think tradition is only important insofar as it's actually doing something that's socially beneficial. If it's just a dogma for no reason, progress is obviously more important. And then assimilation versus multicultural. I think multiculturalism is amazing. And part of it is some level of assimilation where everyone's able to agree under a common framework. We don't need to agree. Religious values don't affect your politics. Even saying religion, I feel like these terms are so loaded. Like when we say religion, or when we do, when we talk about like spirituality or a force greater than yourself, I feel like especially in a Western context, when people hear religion, they think that means there's a sky man, and the sky man puts people in fire. And if you want to be like, okay, you have to do what the sky man tells you, you're going to fire. It's like, it's a very dogmatic interpretation, which is not, it's not like arbitrary. It's largely based on like evangelical Christianity. Faith-based values because you're appealing to immaterial things. And here's the thing. Whether or not those this is the crux of it. Whether or not those immaterial things, those spiritual things, are real is besides the point to me. This is, I think, the big people who are like, listen, man, science and physics, it explains all this stuff, and like I don't see any greater meaning or purpose. It just kind of is what it is. Whether or not that's true, I think we're mixing up categories here, which is like that is a description of reality and physics, but prescriptions and like ought statements have to come from certain premises. And those premises are just, I don't think they're possible to find empirically. You have to kind of just say, okay, we love this. We want to do this. And just take it as a given. So you lie to society, create an outcome. I happen to value truth but this is the thing. How is it a lie? Like a lie is like, I'm not saying go and tell people that physics and science is wrong. I'm saying tell people that there's a different mode of reality. When I'm going through my day-to-day life, I'm not thinking about how many atoms are in this person and like what is the energy transfer. People have a conscious experience, and if the information we're being given is not tailored to be in congruence with the way we interact with the world, then I think that's very different. You just admitted you don't care about the realness of those immaterial things. No, I'm saying that the realness of those things, it depends. I sound like fucking Jordan Peterson. It depends what you mean by real. It depends what you mean by real. And I think you're making I think you're responding to an argument that I'm not making. You would have us believe in unproven things for the outcome's sake. When I say believe in things, I'm not saying to believe in some sky dad or like stop believing what scientists say. I'm saying that there's a different mode of analysis other than just empirical analysis, which is how we derive purpose from reality. And I don't think that that's a question that science is even designed to answer. So I feel like when people default to science for answering those types of questions, it's just not the right mode to engage with it in. Like I'm very pro-science. Like I'm not anything negative you think of when you think of religion, of like dogma and shame and all these things. None of that is what I'm talking about. But if you are around religious people and you see religion and you've studied any of this stuff, if you don't see positives in religion, all you see is negatives, I would say that that's a bias that should be investigated. That there are some metaphysical ideals that are out there in the universe that you appeal to. That has nothing to do with religion. So why then, if your secular score is so low? I mean, again, this is like same with authority. Like a lot of what I answered here wasn't authoritarianism. It's just how they categorize this stuff. This more than religiosity to me is like spirituality or having higher ideals that are not derived from the material reality. I think you might be making conflations. And it's hard to not make conflations because it seems like whenever you bring up religion or spirituality, you are like, you're loading that with a lot of stuff. And then I engage with it and you're putting those associations into what I'm saying when I don't mean it that way. But either way, it's not very, if you don't agree with this, then it's not exactly like the crux of my political commentary. This is just a cultural argument that I make, and I think it's not made enough, which is essentially, if you want people to move towards things that are larger than materialism, like any kind of ought statement, you cannot appeal to what is empirical. It's the is-ought gap. You cannot derive an ought statement from an is statement. You have to start with some kind of assumption or jump or premise or whatever that is not going to be substantiated by any kind of empirical measurement. And whatever that initial jump or whatever is, that is what I'm referring to, where you can't necessarily justify that from a purely materialist perspective. But having that type of thing is very important. And I love virtue ethics a lot. Yeah. I do like virtue ethics a lot. But I don't touch this topic because I feel like people have very loaded perceptions of what this means. And it's like, whether it's religious people or atheist people, I feel like everyone, these words have become so loaded by, especially people who have religious trauma and stuff, where if you argue this, they're going to be like, oh, you want people to be lied to and suffer and shamed and all this stuff. What I'm talking about is building a society that says certain things are good, and we build our society around that, and we try to live up to ideals that maybe don't make us the most money, they don't boost our dopamine as much. Like, I don't think you can judge the health of a society by, are the consumers consuming a lot? Like, I think there has to be something more than that. Not an argument, I think and I'm down to have this discussion with you and with cans as well. I feel like it'd be like a 5-hour discussion, so I know if I open that can of worms right now, it's going to become something else. And I genuinely don't think we disagree on any of this stuff. I think we disagree on the terminology we're using to get across our ideas. I think if I could just beam from my brain to your brain, I think you agree with what I'm saying. But I think because the language I'm using is so loaded in so much different context that the meaning is really diluted and lost, and vice versa. Maybe I'm misunderstanding your point as well. But you keep apologizing. I think that's an assumption that you're making. And I think you have some kind of, I don't know, maybe you have a bad experience with religion, so that's fair enough. But I feel like you get very, very activated when I talk anything that's not like, fuck religion. Because, I mean, I've seen examples of people that believe in organized religion, and it's totally fine. It's not hurting them. It's not hurting anyone else. And I don't see any issue with that. I don't necessarily agree, but organized religion is a vehicle for spirituality, and oftentimes it is doing more harm than good. I don't even disagree with that, but I think that there is a tendency to generalize about what religion is. It also varies a lot by religion. Like the issues you might see with like evangelical Christianity, I don't know if they would even exist in the same way with like Buddhism or something, or Jainism or Hinduism, or even, Islam or different. There's just so much nuance here. Long story short, this is just a very absolutist statement for me, that it always hurts you. It reinforces bad ways of thinking. I think you're assuming a lot when you say that, because anything that reinforces bad ways of thinking and harm and like shames people and force them into a box, that's not even what I mean when I say spirituality. I mean, there's also positive stuff that comes from this as well. And you can say, well, actually, in reality, 9 times out of 10, it is definition of faith, like belief in something. I think organized religion comes with too much dogma, which encourages faith-based thinking. But it's like, faith in what, though? And why is evidence needed? Like, what do you mean by evidence? Do we need physical, material, empirical evidence to set ideals or prescriptions? I don't know what. It's not even the same category to me. That's a disconnect here. This is why I hate philosophy discussions, by the way, is like people are always trying to bridge the is-ought gap. And it's like, ought doesn't come from is. That's not how this works. That's not what ought is. Like, stop switching topics. I think you're getting a little bit in your feelings, but that's fine. I think I've explained all these axes, right? I don't think anyone has any discussions or questions. Faith in what isn't the point. I think it's the willingness to accept things without evidence. By evidence, do you mean empirical evidence? Because if I tell you doing X, Y, and Z is something you should strive to do, you should be an honest person, a kind person who does this and that, what's my evidence for that? Like, evidence doesn't even work in that context, at least how I'm thinking of it. Evidence is used to make descriptive empirical statements. Evidence for like a ethical premise or like an ideal or a value, I think that just neglects what those things are. Like, if you grow up in an individualist society versus a collectivist society, you have certain values about whether you prioritize individualism or collectivism or what it is. You don't have evidence for any of that, though. Like, I don't think evidence plays a role in that situation, which is the confusion. And I don't think faith, if your definition of faith is that you do away with evidence, it's not what I mean by faith. Believing the Bible is a stepping stone to believing what Trump says uncritically? Necessarily? Or potentially? Okay, we got Andrew Wilson in the chat now telling me to look up definitions. I think you mean dogma. I'm not talking about dogma. I'm talking about faith. You've activated me. Trump says God supports the war in Iran. But then, like, what about James Tallarico, debate doc? He believes in the Bible and its value. So how is it like necessarily the case that believing in the Bible means you support Trump? This is what I mean. I feel like I don't want to be in the position of defending organized religion, but I feel like some people just really go off in a different direction where it's like, okay, we don't need to go that far with this. Should I wear a Team Tallarico t-shirt at North Carolina? Hell yeah. You should. That's so based. He's insulting my intelligence by I've never said you haven't thought about this. I just think we're talking past each other. That'd be base as fuck. Just came to mind. You should do that. Implied? Sure, but then I'm clarifying it's not what I'm intending to convey to you. So if you're reading something into what I'm saying that I'm not intending to say, I'm clarifying what I'm actually intending to say, which is I think we're just talking past each other. And I think when I use words like religion and spirituality, it's evoking certain things in your mind. It's not what I mean when I use those words. I think it's necessarily bad, but in the case of Tallarico, I accept it. So it's still bad in the case, because when I say necessarily, that means there's like it's necessitated, and then that would mean that Tallarico is also part of the problem in that sense. And okay, if you don't like the word, maybe if not religion, if not spirituality, if not faith, I don't know what you want me to say. Like there's a certain extent to which I'm relying on colloquial language, and not via text. I agree. I'm gonna end the life. I got baited. I still got baited. Okay. Take care, y'all. Stay religious, stay spiritual, and remember, God is great, okay?